The healer who chose death over love. They called her traitor. They called her whore. When Alara Quinn stood between the werewolf king who wanted her soul and the human man who wanted her safe, she made the one choice that would damn them all. Tonight, under a blood-red moon, she'll defy an empire and watch everything she loves burn. This is the story of a woman torn between two worlds, two men, and two impossible futures. Stay until the end to see how one healer's heart ignited a war that changed everything. Drop a comment with your city. Let's see who's watching from where. Hit that like button. You're going to need it. The smell hit Alara Quinn before she even opened the door. Copper and sweat, fear thick enough to choke on. She pushed through anyway, her medical bag already open, fingers working through vials and bandages before her eyes adjusted to the dim lamplight inside the frontier barn. Jesus Christ, she muttered, taking in the scene. 3 bodies lay sprawled across the hay-strewn floor. 2 men, 1 woman. All human. All torn up bad. Deep gashes across their torsos, bite marks puncturing throats and shoulders. Bone visible through shredded muscle. The woman was still conscious, her breath coming in wet, rattling gasps. "Doc Quinn," she wheezed. "Doc, they came out of nowhere." Alara dropped to her knees beside the woman, hands already pressing clean cloth against the worst of the wounds. "Save your breath, Margaret. Don't talk. Just breathe." But Margaret's fingers clawed at Alara's sleeve, her eyes wild with terror, and something else. Accusation. "Werewolves. They were werewolves. You know about them, don't you? You know—" "I said don't talk." Alara's voice came out harder than she meant it. She focused on the wound, on the familiar rhythm of pressure and assessment, anything to avoid the weight of that stare. Behind her, the barn door creaked open. Heavy boots on wood. She didn't need to look up to know who it was. "How bad?" Caleb Hayes' voice was steady, always steady. That's what she loved about him, what she'd loved for 3 years now, though she'd never said it out loud. He was the kind of man who showed up. Sheriff's deputy, carpenter, the guy who fixed your roof and didn't ask for payment. Good, solid, human. Bad enough, Alara didn't turn around. "Margaret might make it if I can stop the bleeding. The other 2 are gone." Caleb moved beside her, his presence warm and familiar. He crouched down, his hand finding the small of her back. Just for a second, just enough to ground her. "What do you need?" "More hands, clean water, and get everyone else out of here." "Already done." His fingers brushed her spine once more, then pulled away. Always respectful, always careful. "Alara, this is the 4th attack this month." "I know. People are scared." "I know, Caleb. They're saying it's the wolves from the north, the clans. They're saying—" He paused, his jaw working. "They're saying we need to do something before this gets worse." Alara's hands stilled for just a fraction of a second. Then she pressed harder on Margaret's wound, watching the cloth turn dark and wet. "People say a lot of things when they're scared. Are they wrong?" She finally looked at him. His face was all hard angles in the lamplight, strong jaw, dark eyes that never looked away from a problem, never flinched. God, he was beautiful in that rough-hewn way that made her chest ache, and God, she was lying to him every single day. "No," she said quietly. "They're not wrong." Margaret's breathing stuttered, then stopped. Alara's fingers flew to her throat, checking for a pulse she knew she wouldn't find. Nothing. Just stillness and the smell of death. Damn it! She sat back on her heels, wiping blood-slick hands on her apron. 3 dead. 3 more bodies to add to the count. 3 more reasons for the humans in this town to sharpen their pitchforks and load their rifles with silver. Caleb's hand settled on her shoulder. "You did what you could. It wasn't enough. It never is. That's not your fault. But it was. That's what he didn't understand. That's what none of them understood." She stood up, her knees cracking, her back protesting. 32 years old, and she felt ancient some days, worn down by secrets that had teeth. "I need to clean up," she said, already moving toward the water barrel in the corner. "Can you handle the rest?" "Yeah." Caleb stood too, his eyes tracking her movement. There was something in his gaze tonight, something searching. "Alara." She stopped, her hands hovering over the water. "You'd tell me, wouldn't you, if there was something I should know?" Her heart kicked against her ribs. What do you mean? I mean, he ran a hand through his hair, frustration bleeding into his voice. I mean, you're out half the nights. You disappear into the woods. You come back smelling like pine and something else I can't name. And every time there's an attack, you look like you're carrying the weight of the damn world. I'm a healer, Caleb. People need me at all hours. People. Right. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. Or something else. The air between them went tight and dangerous. Alara forced herself to meet his eyes, to keep her face blank. You think I'm involved in this? You think I'm helping the wolves kill our people? No, Christ, no. He looked stricken. I think you're protecting someone or something, and I think it's eating you alive. He wasn't wrong. The truth sat in her throat like broken glass, sharp and impossible to swallow. She wanted to tell him, wanted to grab his face and say, yes, I know them. I heal them. I stand between your world and theirs because if I don't, this whole region drowns in blood. Wanted to tell him that she loved him, loved his steadiness and his goodness and the way he made her feel almost normal. But she also thought about the cabin 2 miles north, hidden deep in wolf territory. She thought about the man, no, not a man, never quite a man, who waited for her there. King Rowan Vire, alpha of the northern clans, the wolf who'd found her 5 years ago, half dead from a poisoned wound, and instead of killing her, had demanded she save him. The wolf who'd looked at her with eyes like winter storms and said, "You're mine now, healer, whether you want to be or not." The wolf who made her feel wild and reckless and terrifyingly alive. There's nothing to protect, she lied. I'm just tired, Caleb. This town is bleeding and I can't stop it fast enough. He searched her face for a long moment. Then he nodded, but she could see the doubt lingering in the corners of his eyes. All right, get some rest. I'll handle the bodies. Thank you. She turned away before he could say anything else, before the cracks in her composure widened into something she couldn't hide. Her hand shook as she scrubbed Margaret's blood from under her fingernails. 3 dead. The 4th attack this month. The war was coming whether she wanted it or not. And tonight, she had to face the man, the wolf, who might be the one starting it. The forest north of town was a different world after dark. Moonlight filtered through dense pine canopy, turning everything silver and shadow. Alara moved through it like a ghost, her feet finding the familiar path without conscious thought. She'd walked this route 100 times, maybe more, enough that the wolves who guarded the borders knew her scent, let her pass without challenge, most of the time. Tonight, she'd barely made it a 1/4 mile in when a massive gray wolf stepped out from behind a tree, blocking her path. His lips pulled back from teeth the size of her thumb. A low growl rumbled in his chest. Easy, Marcus. Alara didn't slow down. I'm expected. The wolf, Marcus in his human form, one of Rowan's lieutenants in this shape, didn't move. His golden eyes tracked her with unsettling intelligence. Then, with a huff that sounded almost like disapproval, he stepped aside. Yeah, I know, Alara muttered as she passed. I'm late. Sue me. The cabin appeared through the trees like something out of a dark fairy tale. Rough-hewn logs, smoke curling from the chimney, windows glowing warm against the cold night. It looked peaceful. Safe, even. But Alara knew better. This place was the heart of werewolf territory, and the man inside was the most dangerous thing in 100 miles. She didn't knock, just pushed the door open and stepped into heat and firelight. Rowan Vire stood with his back to her, staring into the flames in the stone fireplace. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with the kind of build that came from hunting and fighting and never backing down. Dark hair fell past his shoulders, wild and untamed. Even in human form, there was something predatory about him, something that set her nerves on edge and made her blood run hot. You're late, little healer. His voice was a low rumble, intimate and dangerous all at once. 3 people died tonight, Alara said flatly. I was busy. He turned then, and the firelight caught his face. Sharp cheekbones, a mouth made for cruelty or kissing, and those eyes. Gray like storm clouds, like the moment before lightning struck. They pinned her in place, stripped her bare without a single touch. Humans, he said, not a question. Yes, humans. She dropped her bag by the door, suddenly exhausted. Torn apart by werewolves. Women, Rowan, children. What the hell is happening? You think I ordered this? His tone went cold. I think someone did, and if it's not you, then you've lost control of your clans. The words hung in the air like a thrown blade. For a long moment, Rowan didn't move. Then he crossed the space between them in 3 strides, fast enough that she barely had time to register the movement before he was there, crowding into her space, one hand braced against the door behind her head. "Careful," he said softly. "You forget yourself." "Do I?" Alara tilted her chin up, refusing to be intimidated even as her heart hammered against her ribs. "You're the king, aren't you? The great alpha? If your wolves are killing humans, that's on you." His free hand came up, fingers curling around her jaw, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to make his point. "My wolves know the treaty. We hunt animals, not humans. Someone else is breaking the rules. Then find out who. Before this town arms itself and marches into your territory. Let them try." His thumb brushed across her lower lip, a gesture that was both possessive and strangely tender. "They'll be dead before they make it past the first ridge. Is that what you want? War?" "I want," Rowan said, his voice dropping even lower, "what I've always wanted. You. Here. With me. Where you belong." There it was. The thing that sat between them like a living creature, demanding and impossible to ignore. He'd been saying it for months now. "Be my queen. Stand with me. Stop hiding in that human town like you're one of them." As if it were that simple. As if she could just walk away from everything she knew and crown herself ruler of monsters. "I'm not a wolf," she said. "I'll never be a wolf. You don't have to be." His forehead dropped to hers, his breath warm against her skin. "You just have to be mine." God help her. Part of her wanted it. Wanted to lean into this heat, this wildness that Caleb could never give her. Wanted to stop pretending she was just a simple frontier healer when every nerve in her body screamed that she was made for something bigger, darker, more dangerous. But the other part, the part that remembered Margaret's dying accusation, that saw Caleb's steady goodness like a lighthouse in the storm, that part recoiled. "I can't," she whispered. Rowan's jaw clenched. For a second she thought he might kiss her anyway, might take what she wouldn't give freely. Then he stepped back, releasing her. "Can't," he repeated, tasting the word like poison. "Or won't. Does it matter? To me? Yes." He turned away, shoulders rigid with tension. "You come here every week. You tend my wounded. You warn me when the humans are planning something stupid. You've saved my life twice now, but you won't take the final step, won't claim what's between us. Because claiming it would destroy everything." The words burst out of her, raw and desperate. "I'm the only thing standing between your world and theirs. The only one both sides trust, barely. If I choose you, if I become your queen, the humans will see it as betrayal. They'll kill every wolf they can find, and if I choose them..." She couldn't finish that sentence. Couldn't say out loud what it would mean to lose this, to lose him. Rowan looked at her over his shoulder, his expression unreadable. "You can't walk this line forever, Alara. Eventually, you'll have to jump." "Maybe, but not tonight." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Always not tonight. Always, I can't. Do you have any idea what it costs me to let you walk away? To watch you go back to that town, to that man? Don't." Her voice sharpened. "Don't bring Caleb into this." "Why not? He's already in it. You think I don't smell him on you? Clean soap and honest work and all that tedious human goodness?" Rowan's lip curled. "You think I don't know he wants you? That he's probably asked you a dozen times to marry him and make an honest woman out of yourself? He's a good man. He's boring and weak, and he'll never understand the parts of you that howl in the dark." Alara's hands clenched into fists. "You don't get to judge him. You don't know him. I know he can't protect you, not like I can." Rowan moved closer again, relentless. "When the war comes, and it will come, little healer, don't fool yourself. Where will he be? Loading his rifle with shaking hands? Cowering behind the sheriff? He doesn't cower from anything." "Maybe. But he doesn't hunt either. Doesn't kill. Doesn't know what it means to rip out a throat and taste blood on his tongue." Rowan's eyes gleamed in the firelight. "You need someone who can match you. Someone who won't flinch from the darkness you carry." "I'm not dark," she said, but even she could hear how hollow it sounded. "Liar." He smiled, sharp and knowing. "You love the blood, Alara. Maybe not the killing, but the saving. The way it makes you powerful, needed, essential. You love standing at the edge of death and pulling people back. It's a drug for you. And Caleb, sweet, steady Caleb, he'll never feed that hunger. The worst part was, he was right. She did love it. Loved the way her hands could mend what violence broke. Loved being the one person in this whole godforsaken region who could move between two worlds and hold them together through sheer force of will. And she loved him too. Rowan. This impossible, arrogant, devastating man who saw her for exactly what she was and wanted her anyway. But she also loved Caleb, loved his quiet strength, his unwavering belief that people could be better, that violence wasn't the only answer, loved the future he represented, simple, safe, sane, two men, two worlds, and her, trapped in the middle, slowly being torn apart. "I need to go," she said abruptly. "It's late." Running again. Rowan didn't try to stop her this time. "One of these days, you won't be able to run fast enough." Alara grabbed her bag and headed for the door. But before she could open it, his voice stopped her. "There's a gathering in 3 days, full moon. All the clan leaders will be there." A pause. "I want you there, as my guest, publicly." Her hand froze on the doorknob. "Rowan, not a request, Alara. An order." His tone left no room for argument. "Someone in my ranks is breaking the treaty, killing humans to start a war. I need to smoke them out. And having you there, the human healer they all know I favor, it'll force their hand. You're using me as bait. I'm using you as a statement. There's a difference. And if it gets me killed, then I'll burn this entire forest to ash hunting whoever did it." Simple. Matter of fact. As if slaughtering his own people for her sake was the most natural thing in the world. Alara turned to face him one last time. "What if I say no?" Rowan met her eyes, and for just a second she saw something underneath the arrogance and the power, something raw and almost vulnerable. "Then I'll know where you really stand, and I'll stop waiting for you to choose me." The words landed like a punch to the gut. An ultimatum. Come to the gathering, stand beside him in front of his entire court, or lose him forever. 3 days, she said quietly. "I'll think about it." "Don't think too long, little healer. Time's running out for all of us." She left before he could say anything else, stepping out into the cold night air and pulling it into her lungs like a lifeline. Behind her, the cabin door closed with a soft click. The walk back to town felt longer than usual. Every shadow seemed to hide teeth. Every rustle in the underbrush made her jump. By the time she reached the edge of the forest and saw the distant lights of home, her nerves were scraped raw. She was halfway across the open field separating the woods from the settlement when she heard footsteps behind her. Alara spun, heart in her throat, hand already reaching for the small silver knife she kept strapped to her thigh. But it wasn't a wolf stalking her through the darkness. It was Caleb. "Jesus Christ," she breathed, lowering the knife. "You scared the hell out of me." He stood 20 feet away, his face shadowed, but his posture tense. "Where were you?" "I told you, a patient needed—" "Don't." His voice was sharp, sharper than she'd ever heard it. "Don't lie to me anymore, Alara. Not tonight." Her stomach dropped. "Caleb, I followed you." He took a step closer, his hands clenched at his sides. "After the barn, I had a bad feeling. So I followed you into the woods, and I saw you walk right past those wolves like they were old friends. Saw you head straight for that cabin." Oh, God, no. "It's not what you think," she started, but even she could hear how weak it sounded. "Not what I think?" Caleb laughed, bitter and broken. "What do I think, Alara? That the woman I love has been sneaking off to meet the Werewolf King? That she's been lying to me for God knows how long? That every time I touch her, she's thinking about him?" "Stop it." "Why? Because it's true?" He was close enough now that she could see his face in the moonlight, anger and hurt twisting his features into something she barely recognized. "How long, Alara? How long have you been with him?" "I'm not with him. It's not like that." "Then what is it like? Explain it to me. Make me understand why the woman I want to marry is spending her nights with the monster who's probably behind these attacks." "He's not behind them." The words came out too defensive, too quick. "Rowan wouldn't—" "Rowan." Caleb's face went white. "You call him by his name. Like you're close." I am close. I have to be. It's the only way to keep the peace. Peace? His voice rose. Margaret died tonight. 3 people torn apart by wolves. Where's the peace in that? It's not him. Ilara grabbed his arm, desperate to make him understand. Someone else is doing this. Someone trying to start a war. Rowan's trying to find them. And you believe him. Caleb stared at her like she was a stranger. You actually believe the Werewolf King? Yes, I do. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched out, heavy with everything unsaid. Then Caleb pulled his arm from her grip. You're choosing him. I'm not choosing anyone. I'm trying to save everyone. Bullshit! The word cracked like a whip. You're in love with him. I can see it all over your face. And maybe you love me too. I don't know. But it doesn't matter, does it? Because when the war comes, you're going to stand with him. Not me. Tears burned in Ilara's eyes. Caleb, please. I loved you, he said quietly. Past tense. Like it was already over. God help me, I still do. But I can't watch you destroy yourself for him. For them. Then don't watch. The words came out harsher than she meant them. Go back to town. Find someone simple. Someone who doesn't make you question everything. He flinched like she'd hit him. Is that what you want? No. Yes. She didn't know anymore. Everything was tangled up. Love and duty and fear and desire all knotted together until she couldn't tell where one ended and another began. I want you to be safe, she said finally. That's all I've ever wanted. Then come back with me. Now. Leave the wolves to their own problems and choose us. Choose me. It should have been easy. Caleb was right there, offering her everything she'd thought she wanted. A normal life, a good man, a future that didn't involve blood and secrets and impossible choices. But all she could think about was Rowan's ultimatum. 3 days. Come to the gathering or lose him forever. And the terrible, shameful truth was, she couldn't let him go. I can't, she whispered. Something in Caleb's expression shuddered. Right. Of course you can't. He stepped back, putting distance between them that felt like miles. When the war comes, Ilara, and it will come, I hope he's worth it. I hope watching this town burn is worth whatever he makes you feel. Caleb, wait. But he was already walking away, his shoulders rigid, his footsteps heavy on the frost-hardened ground. Ilara watched him go, her heart cracking down the middle, and knew she'd just lost something she could never get back. Behind her, somewhere deep in the forest, a wolf howled. The sound was mournful and wild, and it raised every hair on her body. She stood there in the empty field, caught between the lights of town and the darkness of the woods, and wondered which direction would kill her first. The next 2 days passed in a blur of tension and dread. 3 more attacks. 2 dead, 5 wounded. The town was in an uproar. The sheriff called a meeting. Every able-bodied man was to arm himself. Patrol routes were established. Silver bullets were distributed. And Caleb wouldn't look at her. Ilara threw herself into her work, treating the wounded, trying to calm fears that spiraled higher with every passing hour. But she could feel it coming, inevitable as a storm front, the moment when words wouldn't be enough, when violence would be the only language left. On the 3rd night, she packed a small bag and slipped out of town just after sunset. No one stopped her. Maybe no one noticed, or maybe they were too busy preparing for war to care about one healer's absence. The walk to wolf territory felt like walking to her own execution. Marcus was waiting at the border again, but this time he shifted to human form, a compact, muscular man with scars crossing his chest and a perpetual scowl. You're making a mistake, he said without preamble. Ilara kept walking. That's my problem. It's all our problem if the humans use you as an excuse to attack. He fell into step beside her. Half the clan thinks the king's gone soft, that he's risking everything for a human who'll never truly be one of us. And the other half thinks he's right, that you're the key to avoiding a war. Marcus glanced at her sidelong. For what it's worth, I'm not sure which side I'm on yet. Comforting. They walked in silence until the gathering site came into view, a massive clearing lit by bonfires, surrounded by wolves in both human and animal form, easily 100 of them, maybe more. Ilara's steps faltered. Second thoughts? Marcus asked. Too late for that. Yeah. He almost smiled. Good luck, healer. You're going to need it. Then he shifted and loped off into the crowd, leaving her alone at the edge of the firelight. Alara took a deep breath and stepped forward. Every eye turned toward her. Conversations died mid-sentence. The silence was absolute and suffocating. Then Rowan appeared, striding through the crowd like he owned the world, which, in this clearing, he did. He was dressed simply, dark pants and a loose shirt, but there was no mistaking his power. It radiated off him in waves, commanding and undeniable. He stopped in front of her, his gray eyes searching her face. You came. I said I'd think about it. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. I thought. A slow smile curved his mouth. And? Alara glanced at the sea of werewolves watching them, judging her, measuring her worth. I'm here, aren't I? Yes. Rowan's hand found hers, his fingers lacing through hers with casual possessiveness. You are. Then he turned to face his people, pulling her close to his side, and raised his voice to carry across the clearing. My kin, my clans. Tonight, we have a traitor among us. His words rang out like a bell. Someone has been killing humans, breaking our treaty, putting us all at risk. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, angry, confused, fearful. I will find this traitor, Rowan continued, and when I do, they will answer to me. But until then, we hold the line. We honor our agreements, and we protect what's ours. His hand tightened on Alara's, including her. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. Some wolves nodded approval, others snarled, lips pulling back from fangs. A woman near the front, tall and fierce, with copper-red hair, stepped forward. She's human, the woman spat. You would claim a human as pack? As yours? That's madness. That's my choice, Kira. Rowan's tone went cold. Do you challenge it? Kira's eyes flashed gold. For a second, Alara thought she might actually do it, might shift and attack right there in front of everyone. But then she lowered her gaze, submission grudging but clear. No, my king. Good. Rowan scanned the crowd. Anyone else have objections? Silence. Tense and fragile, but silence nonetheless. Then we proceed. Spread out. Find the traitor. And remember, his voice dropped to something dark and dangerous. The human who stands with me tonight is under my protection. Anyone who harms her answers to me personally. The crowd began to disperse, breaking into smaller groups, muttering among themselves. But Alara barely noticed. All she could focus on was the weight of Rowan's claim, the way every wolf in this clearing now saw her as his. No going back. Not from this. Come, Rowan said quietly, tugging her toward a smaller fire away from the main gathering. We need to talk. They settled on a fallen log, close enough to the flames for warmth, but far enough for privacy. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Rowan said, You're terrified. Can you blame me? No. He studied her face in the firelight. But you came anyway. Why? Because I couldn't let you go. Because I'm selfish and reckless, and I can't stop wanting you, even though it's going to destroy everything. But she couldn't say that. Not out loud. Because you were right, she said instead. Time's running out. I had to choose. And you chose me. I chose... Alara trailed off, searching for the right words. I chose to try. To stand between both worlds one more time. To see if maybe, just maybe, we can stop this before it's too late. Noble. Rowan's smile was wry. And naive. Probably. She looked at him. But what else can I do? Walk away and watch you all kill each other? I can't. I won't. Even if it costs you the other man you love? The question hung in the air like smoke. Alara's throat tightened. Caleb knows, she said quietly. About you. About us. He followed me 2 nights ago. Rowan went very still. And he walked away. Told me I was choosing you over him. Over the town. She swallowed hard. He wasn't wrong. Does that bother you? Of course it bothers me. I love him. Not enough. Rowan turned to face her fully, his expression intense. Not the way you love me, because if you did, you wouldn't be here. Love isn't that simple. It's exactly that simple. You want safety and goodness and a quiet life? Go back to him. Marry him. Have his children. Be the respectable frontier healer everyone thinks you are. His hand cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. But if you want fire and wildness and something that'll burn you alive from the inside out, stay. Be mine. Be my queen and damn the consequences. You make it sound like a fairy tale. It's not. His forehead dropped to hers. It's war and blood and choosing sides. But at least it's honest. Alara closed her eyes, breathing him in, and smoke and something uniquely him. I don't want to lose anyone else. Then fight for them. For all of us. Rowan pulled back just enough to meet her gaze. Find the traitor with me. Stop this war before it starts. And when it's over, he paused, something vulnerable flickering across his face. When it's over, choose me. For real. No more divided loyalties. And if I can't, then I'll let you go. The words sounded like they cost him. But until then, you're mine. Understood? Before she could answer, a howl split the night, urgent and panicked. Then another, and another. Rowan was on his feet instantly, his whole body tensing. Something's wrong! Wolves were streaming back into the clearing, their voices raised in alarm. Marcus appeared, breathing hard, his human form streaked with dirt and blood. My king! He dropped to one knee. We found the traitor, or rather, he looked up, his expression grim. They found us. Explain. It's a human raid, 20 men, maybe more, armed with silver and fire. They're coming up the eastern ridge right now. Marcus's eyes flicked to Alara, and they're being led by Caleb Hayes. The world tilted sideways. No, Alara breathed. No, he wouldn't. But even as she said it, she knew it was true. She'd pushed him too far, broken his heart too completely. And now he was coming for the wolves with blood in his eyes and a rifle in his hands. Coming for Rowan. Coming for her. Rowan's hand found her shoulder, steadying her. Marcus, defensive positions. No killing unless absolutely necessary. We don't escalate this. My king, they have silver bullets. I don't care. We hold the line. His grip on Alara tightened. And someone get her somewhere safe. No. She shook off his hand. If Caleb's leading this, then I can stop it. I can talk to him. He just brought an armed mob into my territory, Rowan said flatly. There's no talking our way out of this. Then let me try. Please, Rowan, if you care about me at all. That's exactly why I won't risk you. He turned to Marcus. Take her to the safe den. Now. Don't you dare! But Marcus was already shifting, his wolf form massive and implacable. Another wolf joined him, flanking Alara on both sides. I'll come back for you, Rowan said, his eyes boring into hers. When this is over, I swear it. Then he was gone, running toward the eastern ridge with a dozen wolves at his heels. Alara tried to follow, but the wolves hemming her in were immovable. One of them, a gray female, nudged her firmly toward the trees. Fine, she snarled, but if anyone dies tonight, it's on all of you. They moved through the forest at a punishing pace, the wolves guiding her deeper into territory she'd never seen before. Behind them, the sound of gunfire echoed through the trees, silver bullets finding flesh, screams, human and wolf alike. And Alara, trapped and helpless, could only run and pray she'd get there in time to save anyone at all. The safe den was a cave system carved deep into the mountainside, hidden behind a waterfall that thundered loud enough to drown out thought. Alara paced the stone floor like a caged animal, her boots echoing in the hollow space while the two wolves who'd escorted her stood guard at the entrance, their forms dark silhouettes against the moonlit water. Let me out, she said for the 20th time. The gray female, she'd learned her name was Sarah, didn't even turn her head. I said, let me out. Nothing, just the relentless sound of water and her own ragged breathing. Alara pressed her palms against the cold stone wall, trying to calm the panic clawing up her throat. Gunfire still echoed in the distance, faint but unmistakable. Each shot felt like a nail driven into her chest. Caleb was out there. Rowan was out there. And she was trapped in this fucking cave while they tore each other apart. She'd done this. She'd broken Caleb's heart and pushed him past his breaking point. She'd stood beside Rowan in front of his entire court and painted a target on both their backs. Every bullet fired tonight, every drop of blood spilled, It was hers to carry. The wolves at the entrance suddenly went rigid, their ears pricking forward. A moment later, footsteps splashed through the waterfall's spray. Alara spun around, hope and dread warring in her gut. But it wasn't Rowan who emerged from the darkness. It was Kira, the copper-haired wolf who'd challenged Alara's presence at the gathering. She was in human form now, wearing leather pants and a sleeveless top that showed off arms corded with muscle and old scars. Her amber eyes locked onto Alara with predatory focus. "Out," Kira said to the guards. Sarah shifted, a low whine of protest rumbling in her chest. "I said out, King's orders. I'm to watch the human." The two wolves exchanged glances, then reluctantly padded into the night, leaving Alara alone with a woman who looked like she wanted to rip her throat out. Kira circled her slowly, assessing. "So, the precious human healer, the one our king risks everything for. I didn't ask him to risk anything." "No?" Kira's smile was all teeth. "You just wandered into our territory, tended our wounded, whispered in our king's ear until he forgot what he was. What we all are. That's not what happened." "Isn't it?" Kira stopped pacing, standing close enough that Alara could smell the wildness on her. Earth and blood and something sharp. 5 years ago, Rowan was hard, ruthless. He would have killed any human who crossed our borders without a second thought. Then you came along, with your soft hands and softer words, and suddenly we're making treaties, holding back, letting them live on our hunting grounds like we're the ones who should be grateful. The treaty keeps the peace. The treaty makes us weak. Kira's voice dropped to something dangerous. And tonight proves it. Your human lover just brought an armed mob into our home. How many of my kin are bleeding out there right now because Rowan was too busy protecting you to see the threat?" Alara's jaw clenched. "Caleb isn't my lover, but you want him to be. Or maybe you want both of them, the safe human and the wild king. Can't decide which life to live, so you string them both along until everything burns." The words hit too close to the bone. Alara took a step back, her shoulders hitting the cave wall. "You don't know anything about me. I know you're going to get him killed." Kira moved closer, crowding into her space the way Rowan did. But where his presence made her feel alive, Kira's just felt threatening. "I know the moment you're gone, he'll remember who he really is, what he's meant to be." "And what's that?" "A king, not a lovesick fool chasing after a human who'll never be good enough for him." Alara's hand shot out before she could think, connecting with Kira's cheek in a sharp crack that echoed through the cave. The wolf's head snapped to the side, but she didn't stumble, didn't even flinch. Slowly, deliberately, Kira turned her face back toward Alara. A thin line of blood traced down from her split lip. Her eyes had gone full gold, wolf rising just beneath the surface. "Big mistake, little healer." "Was it?" Alara forced herself to hold that inhuman gaze. "Because from where I'm standing, you're just jealous. Mad that he chose me over you." Kira's laugh was harsh and humorless. "Chose you? He hasn't chosen anything. He's obsessed. There's a difference." "Is there? You really think this ends with you wearing a crown, living happily ever after in some fantasy where the human and the wolf bridge two worlds?" Kira shook her head. "You're delusional. The only way this ends is with you dead or him destroyed. Maybe both." Before Alara could respond, a wolf's howl split the night, high and urgent, a sound that made Kira's whole body go tense. "That's the retreat signal." Kira's eyes narrowed. "Something's gone wrong." She shifted in a blur of movement, bones cracking and reforming until a massive copper wolf stood where the woman had been. Then she was gone, bounding through the waterfall and into the chaos beyond, leaving Alara alone in the cave with nothing but her fear and the terrible knowledge that Kira was right. This was never going to end well. Alara didn't wait. The moment Kira disappeared, she ran. Through the waterfall, soaked and shivering, her healer's bag clutched against her chest. The forest was a nightmare of shadows and sound. Wolves howling, men shouting, the crack of gunfire breaking through the trees like thunder. She followed the noise, her heart slamming against her ribs, branches tearing at her clothes and hair. Smoke stung her eyes. Somewhere close, something was burning. The clearing appeared suddenly, lit by firelight that turned everything orange and hellish. Bodies littered the ground, wolves and humans both, some moving weakly, others terrifyingly still. Blood soaked into the earth, dark and glistening. And in the center of it all, two men faced each other. Rowan stood in human form, his chest heaving, blood streaming from a gash across his shoulder. His eyes were pure wolf, feral and furious. Across from him, Caleb held a rifle leveled at the king's heart, his finger on the trigger, his face a mask of rage and grief. "Caleb, no!" Alara's scream cut through the chaos. Both men's heads snapped toward her. The moment of distraction cost them. A wolf, young and panicked and probably terrified out of his mind, lunged at Caleb from the side. The rifle went off, the shot going wide. Rowan moved like lightning, intercepting the young wolf mid-leap, slamming him to the ground with enough force to crack bone. "Stand down!" Rowan's voice carried the weight of absolute command. "All of you, stand down now!" The fighting stuttered, then stopped. Wolves backed away from the humans they'd been grappling with. Men lowered their weapons, chests heaving, eyes wild. Caleb was the last to move. He kept his rifle trained on Rowan for a long, terrible moment. Then slowly, he lowered it. Alara ran to the center of the clearing, putting herself physically between them. "Stop, both of you. Just stop." "Get out of the way, Alara." Caleb's voice was cold, empty. She'd never heard him sound like that. "No. He's a monster. They all are. You've seen what they did. I've seen what you did too." She gestured at the carnage around them. "You brought armed men into their home. You fired first. Don't stand there and act like you're the victim. They've been killing our people. Not him," she pointed at Rowan. "Not his wolves. Someone else. Someone trying to start exactly this." "Convenient." Caleb's jaw clenched. "Real convenient that you believe whatever he tells you. Because I know him." "Yeah." Caleb's laugh was broken glass. "You do. That's the problem." Rowan stepped forward, putting a hand on Alara's shoulder. The gesture was casual, possessive, deliberate. "This is over, human. Take your men and go, before I stop being merciful." "Merciful?" Caleb's eyes locked onto where Rowan's hand rested on Alara. "You call this mercy? You've turned her into a traitor, made her choose you over her own kind. She chose herself." Rowan's fingers tightened slightly. "Something you never let her do." "Don't." Alara shook off his hand, turning to face him. "Don't make this worse." "Worse?" Rowan's expression was hard, unreadable. "He brought war to my doorstep. There's no worse left." "There's always worse." She looked between them. These two men who owned pieces of her heart she'd never get back. "This stops now. No more attacks, no more raids. We find the real enemy together or we all die separately." "Together." Caleb shook his head, something breaking in his eyes. "There is no together, Alara. There's him or me, his world or mine. And you've already made your choice." "I'm choosing peace." "You're choosing him. Just admit it." The words hung in the smoke-thick air. Alara opened her mouth to deny it, to say something that would fix this, but nothing came out. Because he was right, wasn't he? She'd stood beside Rowan in front of his entire court, let him claim her as his, defended him even now, with human blood on the ground, and Caleb looking at her like she was a stranger. "If I am," she said quietly, "it's because you gave me no choice. You followed me, confronted me, then brought an army to his home. What did you think would happen? I thought you'd see sense, thought you'd realize what he is before it was too late." Caleb's voice cracked. "But I was wrong. You're too far gone." He turned to the men behind him, bloodied, terrified humans clutching their weapons like lifelines. "We're leaving, all of you, now." "Caleb, don't." He held up a hand, not looking at her. "Don't say my name. Don't tell me you're sorry. Just don't." The humans retreated into the forest, supporting their wounded, leaving their dead. The silence they left behind was suffocating. Rowan's wolves began to emerge from the shadows, tending to their own injured, dragging bodies toward the tree line. The clearing that had been a gathering place hours ago was now a graveyard. Alara sank to her knees in the blood-soaked grass, her hand shaking. This was her fault. All of it. She thought she could walk the line between two worlds, but all she'd done was set them on a collision course. Rowan crouched beside her, his hand finding the back of her neck. "You did the right thing." "Did I?" She looked at the carnage around them. Because it doesn't feel right. It feels like everything's falling apart. It was already falling apart. You just forced everyone to see it. People died tonight, Rowan. Yes, and more will die if we don't find who's really behind this. His fingers massaged the tense muscles of her neck, grounding her. The attacks on the humans, the raid tonight, none of it makes sense. Someone's orchestrating this, playing both sides. Alara's mind raced, sorting through possibilities. Who benefits from a war? In the short term? No one. Humans and wolves both lose if we slaughter each other. Rowan stood, pulling her up with him. But in the long term, there are clans that want expansion, territory, and there are humans who want the same. So we look for someone with ambition. We look for someone with access to both sides. His eyes found hers. Someone who could move between our worlds without raising suspicion. The implication hit her like a fist. You think it's someone like me? No, but I think it's someone who's been watching you, learning from you, someone who saw how you walked the line and decided to exploit it. Before she could process that, Marcus appeared, limping slightly, his human form covered in blood and dirt. My king, we have a problem. What now? The raid wasn't random. They had a map, detailed layout of our gathering sites, patrol routes, everything. Marcus's expression was grim. Someone gave them intelligence. Someone from inside. Rowan went very still. Show me. They followed Marcus to the edge of the clearing where the humans had made their initial approach. Sure enough, a piece of torn parchment lay half buried in the dirt. Rowan picked it up, his face darkening as he studied the markings. This is Kira's handwriting, he said quietly. Alara's stomach dropped. The wolf who challenged me at the gathering? My second in command. Or she was. Rowan crumpled the parchment in his fist. Find her. Now. Wolves scattered into the forest, howls rising in a coordinated search pattern. But Alara already knew they wouldn't find her. Kira had been too prepared, too ready to capitalize on the chaos. She planned this, Alara said. The attacks on the humans, the raid tonight, she's been setting us up to destroy each other. But why? Marcus looked confused. What does she gain? Power. Rowan's voice was cold with certainty. If I fall, she takes the throne. And if the humans are devastated by a war they think I started, there's no one left to oppose her expansion. It made a sick kind of sense. Kira had been vocal about the treaty being weakness, about Rowan's obsession with Alara making him vulnerable. She'd been positioning herself all along, waiting for the right moment to strike. We need to warn the town, Alara said. If Kira's not here, she's probably there, planning another attack to... The explosion cut her off. A massive boom that shook the earth and sent birds screaming into the sky. Everyone turned toward the source, the direction of the human settlement. Orange light bloomed on the horizon. Fire. A lot of it. No. Alara's voice came out strangled. No, no, no. She was running before anyone could stop her, her legs pumping, branches whipping her face. Behind her, she heard Rowan shouting orders, wolves mobilizing, but she didn't slow down. Couldn't. The town was burning, and Caleb was there, and if she didn't move fast enough... The smell hit her first, smoke and burning wood, and underneath it, the copper tang of blood. Lots of blood. The settlement came into view, and Alara's heart stopped. Half the buildings were on fire. Bodies lay in the streets, men, women, people she'd known her whole life. And moving through the chaos like a ghost, copper hair gleaming in the firelight, was Kira in human form. She held a torch in one hand and a wicked curved blade in the other. Alara! Caleb's voice cut through the roar of flames. He was pinned down behind an overturned wagon, his rifle empty, blood streaming from a gash on his temple. Get out of here! Kira's head swung toward her, a smile spreading across her face. Well, well, the little healer comes to save the day. How predictable. You did this. Alara's hands clenched into fists. The attacks, the raid, all of it. Very good. Though I had help. Some very ambitious humans who wanted wolf territory for themselves. Turns out greed is universal. Kira twirled the blade casually. The plan was simple. Make the humans think Rowan was behind the killings. Make Rowan think the humans were betraying the treaty. Then sit back and watch them annihilate each other. And then what? Rule over the ashes? Yeah, something like that. Kira's eyes gleamed. Rowan's too weak to do what needs to be done. Too busy mooning over you to see the bigger picture. But I'm not weak, and once he's dead and you're dead and these pitiful humans are crushed, the clans will finally have the leader they deserve. You're insane. I'm ambitious. There's a difference. Kira raised the torch. Now I'm going to burn this whole settlement to the ground, starting with your precious Caleb, and you're going to watch. She moved toward Caleb's position with inhuman speed. Elara screamed, lurching forward, but she was too slow, too human. A massive black wolf slammed into Kira from the side, teeth flashing. Rowan. He must have shifted and run full out to get here this fast. The two wolves, copper and black, rolled across the burning street in a snarling tangle of fur and fangs. Kira was good, fast, and vicious, but Rowan was the king for a reason. He was bigger, stronger, fighting with a fury that bordered on feral. Elara ran to Caleb, dropping beside him. Are you hurt? I'm fine. You shouldn't be here. Mushroom. Shut up. She was already checking his wounds, her hands moving on autopilot. The gash on his head was superficial but bleeding heavily. His left arm hung at an odd angle. Dislocated shoulder. This is gonna hurt. What's gonna... She popped his shoulder back into place. Caleb's scream was drowned out by the roar of nearby flames, but his face went white. Sorry, she muttered, already wrapping the wound on his head. Can you move? Yeah, I can move. He grabbed her arm, his grip desperate. Elara, listen to me. When this is over, later. We'll talk later. She pulled away, her eyes finding the fight still raging in the street. Rowan had Kira pinned, his jaws around her throat. One bite would end it, one snap, and the traitor would be dead. But he hesitated. Elara saw it happen. That moment of mercy, of reluctance to kill one of his own. And Kira saw it too. The copper wolf twisted impossibly fast, raking her claws across Rowan's exposed belly. He yelped and stumbled back, blood pouring from deep gashes. Kira rolled to her feet, already shifting back to human form. Always too soft, she panted, blood on her lips. That's your problem, Rowan. You care too much. Rowan shifted too, his hand pressed to the wounds in his stomach. And you don't care enough. Caring is weakness. You taught me that once, before you forgot everything for her. Kira's eyes cut to Elara. She's made you pathetic. She's made me better. She's made you dead. Kira lunged, the blade in her hand catching the firelight. But this time, Elara was ready. She scooped up a fallen rifle. She didn't know whose, didn't care, and fired. The shot went wide, but it was enough to make Kira dodge. Rowan used the opening, closing the distance and driving his fist into her solar plexus. She doubled over, gasping. He followed with an elbow to her temple that dropped her to her knees. For a moment, the only sound was crackling flames and ragged breathing. Then Rowan pulled a silver knife from his belt, the one Elara had given him years ago when she'd first started treating him. The one she'd told him to use if she ever turned into a threat. I should kill you, he said quietly. By every law we have, you've earned death a dozen times over. Kira looked up at him, blood trickling from her mouth. So do it. Prove you're still a king worth following. The knife trembled in Rowan's hand. Behind him, more wolves were arriving, forming a circle. Marcus, Sarah, others Elara recognized, all watching their king, waiting to see what he would do. Rowan, Alara's voice cut through the tension. She needs to stand trial, in front of both humans and wolves, show everyone what she did, make her answer for it publicly. A trial won't satisfy the blood debt. No, but it'll prove you're better than she is, that you're the leader this region needs. Rowan's eyes met hers across the flames. Something passed between them, understanding, trust, maybe even love. Then he lowered the knife. Marcus, take her into custody. She stands trial at dawn. My king, that's an order. Marcus moved forward, along with two other wolves. They hauled Kira to her feet, binding her wrists with silver chains that made her skin smoke and blister. This won't save you, Kira hissed at Rowan. The clans are already divided. Half of them think you've gone soft. This just proves it. Then they can challenge me, properly, not through sabotage and murder. Rowan turned away from her, dismissing her existence. Get her out of my sight. As the wolves dragged Kira into the darkness, Elara finally let herself breathe. The fires were still burning, the town was still in ruins, but the immediate threat was gone. They'd survived. But at what cost? She looked around at the destruction, collapsed buildings, dead bodies, smoke choking the sky. This had been a home, a community, and now it was a war zone. Caleb appeared at her side, still favoring his injured arm. We need to organize a bucket brigade. Get these fires under control before they spread to the whole settlement. I'll help. Alara started to move, but Caleb caught her wrist. Wait. She turned, and the look on his face made her chest ache. There was grief there, and resignation, and something that looked like goodbye. You saved my life tonight, he said. Again. That's what I do. I know, but you saved his too, and given the choice... He trailed off, his eyes searching hers. Given the choice, you'd always save him first, wouldn't you? Alara wanted to lie, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that she loved them equally, that she'd never choose, but she'd lied enough, done enough damage with half-truths and divided loyalties. I don't know, she said honestly. Maybe. Probably. I'm sorry, Caleb, I never meant to... I know. You never meant to fall for him, never meant to break my heart, never meant to become something you're not. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, gentle and final. But you did. All of it. Caleb, I loved you, Alara Quinn. Loved you enough to follow you into hell. But I can't love you enough to live there. He let go of her hand. So this is me, walking away. For real this time. Tears burned in her eyes. I understand. Do you? He smiled, sad and tired. Because I'm not sure I do. How you can love two men at once. How you can belong to two worlds. How you can look at all this, he gestured at the burning town, and still think you can fix it. I have to try. Yeah, you do. That's who you are. He took a step back, putting distance between them that felt permanent. Goodbye, Alara. I hope he's worth it. I hope you both are. Then he turned and walked toward the bucket brigade forming near the well, shoulders squared, head high, walking away from her for the last time. Alara stood in the middle of the burning street, tears streaming down her face, and felt the last piece of her old life crumble to ash. A hand settled on her shoulder. She knew without looking that it was Rowan. He's a good man, Rowan said quietly. I know. Better than me, probably. In some ways. She turned to face him, taking in the blood soaking his shirt, the exhaustion pulling at his features. In other ways, no one's better than you. His hand cupped her face, thumb wiping away her tears. You chose me tonight, in front of everyone, defended me, saved me. I chose us both. I've always chosen both. No. Rowan's eyes were intense, demanding. You can't anymore. Kira was right about one thing. Divided loyalties will destroy you. Destroy us. So I'm asking you now, while the truth is still raw and there's nowhere left to hide. He leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. Choose me. For real. Be my queen. Stand with me in front of both our peoples and claim it. No more hesitation. No more doubt. And if I can't, then I let you go, like I promised. His voice roughened. But I need to know, Alara, after everything, after tonight. Do you love me? The question hung in the air between them, sharp and unavoidable. And standing there in the ruins of her old world, with Caleb's goodbye still echoing in her ears and Rowan's heart beating against hers, Alara finally admitted the truth she'd been running from for 5 years. Yes, she whispered. God help me. Yes, I love you. Rowan's eyes closed, something like relief washing over his face. Then say yes. Be mine. Publicly. Tomorrow at the trial. Stand with me. And, my king! Marcus's shout cut through the moment. He was running toward them, panic written across his face. My king, we have a problem. Rowan pulled back, instantly alert. What now? Kira, she's escaped, and she's taken hostages from the settlement, women and children. She's demanding you meet her at the northern ridge. Alone. Marcus's expression was grim. Or she starts killing them, 1 per hour until dawn. The world tilted. Alara's mind raced, trying to process, but all she could think was, this wasn't over. It would never be over. And now innocent people were going to die because of her choices, her divided heart, her inability to just pick a side and damn the consequences. Rowan's hand found hers, squeezing tight. How many hostages? 6, including the sheriff's daughter. Alara's breath caught. Sarah, 8 years old, all blonde curls and gap-toothed smiles. She'd delivered the girl herself, watched her grow up, and now Kira had her claws in her. I'll go, Rowan said immediately. No. Alara grabbed his arm. It's a trap. She wants you alone so she can kill you. Probably, but I can't let children die. Then we go together, both of us. Show her she's lost, that human and wolf can stand unified. Alara, I said together. She looked up at him, her jaw set. I just chose you. Now you choose me. Trust me. Let me stand with you. Rowan stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Together. But if things go bad, they won't. If they do, he continued, his voice firm, you run. You don't try to save me. You don't sacrifice yourself. You run and you live. That's an order. I don't take orders from you. Then take it as a request from the man who loves you. His hand tightened on hers. Live, Alara, no matter what. Promise me. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she'd never run, never leave him. But the look in his eyes, desperate and fierce and utterly serious, stopped the words in her throat. I promise, she lied. They moved through the night together, Marcus and a dozen wolves flanking them. The northern ridge was an hour's walk, maybe less at wolf speed. Kira would be waiting, probably with more tricks, more traps, more ways to turn the situation into a bloodbath. But for the first time in 5 years, Alara wasn't walking alone, wasn't trying to balance between two worlds. She was walking beside the man she loved, claiming him openly, and if that made her a traitor in human eyes, so be it. The ridge came into view just as the first hints of dawn touched the horizon. 6 figures huddled together on the rocky outcropping, their hands bound, mouths gagged, children and 2 women, all terrified. And standing over them, copper hair wild in the wind, was Kira. She'd shifted back to wolf form, massive and threatening, her teeth bared in what might have been a smile. I knew you'd come, she called out, her voice carrying easily. Both of you, so predictable. Let them go, Rowan said. This is between us. Is it? Kira's head tilted. Because from where I stand, this is about her. Always about her. The human who corrupted our king. The woman who made him forget what he is. I know exactly what I am, Rowan said quietly. And what I'm not. I'm not you. I won't build power on the backs of innocents. Noble, weak, same thing. Kira took a step toward the hostages, her meaning clear. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to step down, publicly, name me as your successor, and then you're going to walk away with your pet human and never come back. And if I refuse, then I start killing. 1 per minute this time, not per hour. I'm feeling impatient. Her teeth gleamed. Starting with the littlest one. What's her name? Sarah? The little girl whimpered behind her gag, tears streaming down her face. Alara's vision went red. She took a step forward, but Rowan's hand shot out, holding her back. You can't win this, Kira, he said. Even if you kill me, the clans won't follow you. You've proven yourself dishonorable. A traitor. They'll follow strength, and I'm the strongest thing left standing. Kira's eyes locked onto Alara. Unless you think your little human can stop me? It was a taunt, a challenge, trying to goad Alara into doing something stupid. And God help her, it was working. Let me talk to her, Alara said quietly to Rowan. Alone. Absolutely not. She wants me. Let me give her what she wants. Alara met his eyes. Trust me. Trusting you is what got us here. No. Lying did. Hiding did. Half measures did. She touched his face, gentle and certain. But I'm done with all that, so trust me. One last time. Rowan looked like he wanted to argue, but then, slowly, he nodded and stepped back. Alara walked forward, hands raised, showing she was unarmed. Kira watched her approach, suspicious but curious. Smart Wolf sent the king away, Kira said when Alara was close enough. What do you want, human? To make a trade. What kind of trade? Alara took a deep breath. Me for them. Let the hostages go. Take me instead. Kira's laugh was sharp and cruel. Why would I do that? I can have you both. No, you can't. Alara's voice steadied. Because if you kill Rowan, his wolves will tear you apart. They might tolerate your ambition, but regicide, never. And if you kill me, he'll hunt you to the ends of the earth. But if you take me hostage, you have leverage. Real leverage. He'll do anything to get me back. Including step down? Probably. Alara smiled, thin and dangerous. But he'll also spend every second planning your death. So you'd better make sure I stay alive, because the moment I stop breathing, you're already dead. You just don't know it yet. Kira circled her, considering. You're braver than I thought. Stupider, too. Maybe. Or maybe I just finally figured out what I'm willing to die for. Alara glanced back at Rowan, who stood frozen with barely controlled fury. Him, them, all of it. So what do you say? Trade? For a long moment, Kira didn't answer. Then she shifted to human form, faster than thought, and grabbed Alara by the throat. Deal, she said, and everything went. The world snapped into sharp focus the second Kira's fingers closed around Alara's throat. Not tight enough to crush, just enough to claim, to prove a point. Let her go! Rowan's voice cracked like a whip across the ridge. Stay back, my king! Kira's breath was hot against Alara's ear, her grip iron. Or I snap her neck before you take another step. Alara felt Rowan's fury like a physical force, felt the wolves behind him bristling with the need to attack. But he held them back with nothing more than a raised hand, his eyes locked on hers. Release the hostages first, Alara managed, her voice strained. That was the deal. Kira laughed, low and vicious. Was it? I don't recall agreeing to anything. Her free hand gestured lazily toward the bound women and children. But fine. A show of good faith. She barked an order in the wolf tongue, sharp, guttural sounds that made the air vibrate. 2 wolves emerged from the shadows, cutting the hostages' bonds with their claws. The children stumbled to their feet, sobbing. Sarah's mother grabbed her daughter and ran toward the wolves flanking Rowan, who let them pass without challenge. Within seconds, all 6 hostages were safe behind Rowan's line, and Alara was completely, utterly alone. There, Kira said, her tone mocking. Satisfied? I kept my word. Now your king keeps his. He steps down, publicly, at the trial that's supposed to happen at dawn. There won't be a trial, Rowan said flatly. You lost that right when you took hostages. Then I suppose I'll just have to kill this one and try again with someone you care about less. Kira's fingers tightened fractionally. Oh wait, there is no one you care about more. How inconvenient for you. Alara's mind raced, searching for a way out, but her options were narrowing by the second. Kira was stronger, faster, and positioned perfectly to break her neck before anyone could intervene. The smart play would be to wait, to trust that Rowan would find an opening. But Alara had never been good at waiting. You think this ends with you winning? Alara said, forcing the words past Kira's grip. You think killing me makes you strong? It makes me the one who took what he loved most. That's power. It makes you pathetic. Alara met Kira's eyes, saw the rage flickering there. You can't beat him. Not in strength, not in strategy, not in anything that matters. So you go after the people around him, like a coward. The grip on her throat tightened. Careful, little healer. Why? What are you going to do? Kill me? Alara's laugh came out strangled but defiant. You do that, and you lose your only leverage. Then Rowan tears you apart, and every wolf here watches their would-be queen die screaming. Maybe. Or maybe I take you somewhere he'll never find you. Keep you alive just enough to make him suffer. Kira leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. I've had 5 years to watch him obsess over you. 5 years of watching him weaken himself for a human who will never be worthy. So yes, little healer, I'm going to make you bleed, slowly, and I'm going to make sure he knows exactly what's happening to you while he can't do a damn thing to stop it. Ice flooded Alara's veins. This wasn't just about power. This was personal, twisted and sick. And wait, 5 years. Kira had said 5 years. But that was exactly how long Alara had known Rowan. The exact amount of time since she'd first stumbled into wolf territory and saved his life, which meant Kira had been watching them from the very beginning. You were there, Alara said slowly, pieces clicking into place. That night, when Rowan was poisoned, you were the one who poisoned him? Yes. Kira's smile was all teeth. Silver and nightshade mixed into his food, just enough to bring him to the edge of death. I thought it would kill him, make me queen by default. The revelation hit like a physical blow. But I saved him. Yes, you did. Stupid, meddling human. Kira's grip shifted, becoming almost contemplative. I'd planned everything perfectly, and then you showed up with your herbs and your gentle hands and your absurd determination to save a monster who should have died. You ruined 5 years of work in a single night. Rowan had gone very still. You've been trying to kill me for 5 years? Trying to free us, Kira corrected, from your weakness, your obsession with peace, your pathetic treaty. She spat the word like poison. The clans deserve a real leader, someone who'll take what's ours and expand our territory, not someone who bows to humans and falls in love with them. So you started a war, killed innocents, turned us against each other. Rowan's voice was dangerously quiet. All for power. All for survival. Kira's control cracked, fury bleeding through. You were making us soft, making us vulnerable. It was only a matter of time before the humans realized we were no longer a threat and came for our lands. I was trying to save us. By destroying us first. By destroying you. Kira's eyes blazed. You and your precious human. Once you were gone, I could have rebuilt. Made the clan strong again. Alara's thoughts were spinning, trying to keep up. 5 years of manipulation. 5 years of Kira working in the shadows. Poisoning more than just Rowan's food. She'd poisoned the peace, the trust, everything they'd built. And she'd almost succeeded. The attacks on the humans, Alara said. Those were you too. Not just the recent ones, all of them. Most of them. Though I had help. Kira's smile turned vicious. Ambitious humans who wanted wolf land, ambitious wolves who wanted war. All it took was a little coordination, a few strategic deaths, some well-placed rumors. She laughed. You'd be amazed how easy it is to start a war when both sides are already afraid. Who? Rowan demanded. Who helped you from the human side? Does it matter? They're already dead. I killed them last night during the raid. Can't have loose ends. Of course. Kira had orchestrated everything down to the last detail. Used both sides, manipulated both communities, and when she was done with her co-conspirators, she'd eliminated them. Clean, efficient, monstrous. You won't get away with this, Alara said. I already have. Look around, healer. Kira gestured at the wolves surrounding them. Half of them agree with me. Think Rowan's gone soft. They won't fight for him. Not against me. Is that true? Rowan's voice cut across the ridge, addressing his wolves directly. Do you stand with her? With a traitor who poisoned your king and started a war to seize power? The silence that followed was suffocating. Then Marcus stepped forward, his jaw clenched. I stand with you, my king, as I always have. Sarah moved to stand beside him. And I. One by one, wolves stepped forward, declaring their loyalty. But not all of them. Alara watched in growing horror as nearly a third of the assembled pack remained motionless, their eyes cold and calculating. Kira had been right. The clans were divided. And if it came to a fight, the outcome was far from certain. You see? Kira's triumph was palpable. I don't need to kill you, Rowan. I just need to wait. Your own people will tear you down for me. Or, came a new voice from the shadows, they'll tear you down instead. Every head turned. A figure emerged from the tree line, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the easy confidence of someone who owned every space they entered. Alara's heart stopped. It was Caleb. But he wasn't alone. Behind him walked a dozen men, all armed, all wearing the distinctive silver badges of the regional marshal's office. And beside Caleb, matching his stride, was an older man Alara recognized from wanted posters plastered around the settlement. James Cutter, the territory's most notorious wolf hunter. What is this? Rowan's voice was deadly quiet. Caleb's eyes found Alara, and what she saw there made her stomach drop. Not love, not even anger, just cold, calculated determination. This, Caleb said, is justice. He raised his hand. Every marshal behind him leveled their rifles at the assembled wolves. Silver bullets glinted in the pre-dawn light. Nobody move, Cutter ordered, his voice carrying the weight of authority and violence. This ridge is now under territorial jurisdiction. All werewolves are to submit to arrest or face lethal force. You can't be serious, Marcus snarled. Deadly serious, Wolf. Cutter's hand rested on the massive revolver at his hip. We've got testimony from survivors of last night's attack. Witnesses who saw werewolves slaughtering humans. That's a violation of the Frontier Treaty, which gives us legal authority to act. It wasn't us! Sarah's voice rose, panicked. It was her. Kira orchestrated everything. Convenient story. Cutter's smile was thin and cruel. The wolves blame one of their own to save their skins. We've heard it before. Alara's mind reeled. This couldn't be happening. Caleb was supposed to be the good one, the one who followed the rules, who believed in justice. But looking at his face now, she saw something she'd never seen before. Hatred. Caleb, she managed, her voice rough from Kira's grip. What are you doing? What I should have done months ago. His eyes never left hers. Stopping this. All of it. You, him, the treaty, it's all poison. Makes us weak. Makes us vulnerable to creatures who kill us in our sleep. That's not... Sarah almost died last night. The words exploded out of him. An 8-year-old girl, Alara. She watched her father get ripped apart by wolves, watched him bleed out while these monsters laughed. Kira did that, not them. They're all the same. Caleb's composure cracked completely. You've been so busy trying to save them, trying to bridge two worlds, you can't see what's right in front of you. They're predators, killers, and the only way to keep our people safe is to put them down. The words landed like blows. Alara stared at the man she'd loved, the man she'd thought she knew, and saw a stranger wearing his face. So that's it? Her voice came out small, broken. You're going to execute them all, even the ones who had nothing to do with this. We're going to enforce the law, same as we would for any criminal. Cutter stepped forward, his hand moving to a set of silver manacles on his belt. Starting with the self-proclaimed king, Rowan Vire, you're under arrest for conspiracy to murder, inciting violence, and violation of territorial peace statutes. Like hell. Rowan's eyes flashed gold, wolf rising to the surface. You have no authority here. We have rifles and silver bullets. That's all the authority we need. Cutter gestured to his men. Take him. The marshals advanced. The wolves tensed, ready to fight. And Alara, caught in Kira's grip between two armies about to slaughter each other, finally understood the full scope of the trap. Kira hadn't just been playing Rowan and the humans against each other. She'd been playing Caleb too. Setting him up, feeding his fears, making sure that when everything fell apart, he'd be angry enough and desperate enough to do something irreversible. Caleb, listen to me. Alara forced the words out, desperate. Kira planned this, all of it. She wanted you here. Wanted you to come with guns and authority and execute her enemies for her while she walks away clean. I don't care what she planned. Caleb's jaw was set. She exposed what they really are. That's enough. It's not enough. You're better than this. Am I? He laughed, bitter and sharp. Because I followed you into the woods, trusted you when you said you could fix things. And where did that get me? My town burning, my people dead, and the woman I loved choosing a monster over me. He's not a monster. Yes, he is. They all are. Caleb's hand moved to his own rifle. And I'm done pretending otherwise. Kira's grip on Alara loosened slightly, just enough that she could breathe easier. Just enough that Alara realized Kira was enjoying this. Watching Caleb spiral, watching Rowan face execution, watching everything burn exactly the way she'd planned. You're going to let them die for you, Alara said quietly, turning her head to look at Kira. All those wolves who stayed loyal to Rowan. You're going to let the marshals execute them so you don't have to get your hands dirty. Kira's smile was serene. Why not? They chose their king. Now they can die with him. And the ones who sided with you? We'll watch and learn what happens to weakness. Kira's grip tightened again, possessive. Then they'll follow me, or join the corpses. Alara's mind raced. She had seconds, maybe less, before this turned into a massacre. The marshals were advancing. Rowan's wolves were preparing to fight. And Caleb, God, Caleb was actually going to watch this happen. Maybe even participate. There had to be a way out. Some angle she hadn't considered. Wait. Cutter. The wolf hunter. He wasn't looking at the wolves with fear or even righteous anger. He was looking at them with calculation. The same way a merchant assessed goods. You're not here to arrest them, Alara said slowly, her eyes locking onto Cutter. You're here to harvest them. Cutter's smile widened. Smart girl. Harvest? Caleb's head snapped toward the older man. What's she talking about? Wolf pelts fetch a premium in the eastern markets. Claws, fangs, certain organs, all valuable to the right buyers. Cutter shrugged. Territory says we can use lethal force against treaty violators. Doesn't say we can't profit from the bodies. The color drained from Caleb's face. You said this was about justice. It is. Justice and profit. They go together nicely. Cutter gestured to his men. Now, Deputy Hayes, you can either step aside and let us do our job, or you can join the wolves on the ground. Your choice. For a long, terrible moment, Caleb stood frozen. Alara could see the war playing out behind his eyes, grief and rage battling against the fundamental decency that had defined him his whole life. Then slowly, he lowered his rifle. This is wrong, he said quietly. This is survival. Cutter's hand moved to his revolver. Last chance, boy. With us or against us? Against. The word came out firm, certain. Caleb turned to face the marshals, putting himself between them and the wolves. This stops now. You're making a mistake, probably, but it's mine to make. Caleb's eyes found Alara's across the space. I was wrong, about a lot of things, but mostly about this, about letting hate make my decisions for me. My father would have been ashamed. Tears burned in Alara's eyes. Caleb, enough talk. Cutter drew his revolver in one smooth motion, the barrel leveling at Caleb's chest. Move or die, deputy. Then I die! The shot rang out like thunder. Alara screamed, her voice raw and broken. Kira's grip loosened in surprise, and Alara used the opening to wrench herself free, stumbling toward where Caleb had fallen. But when she reached him, her hands shaking as they searched for the wound, she found nothing. No blood. No entry wound. Just Caleb staring up at her in shock, very much alive. Behind Cutter, one of the marshals lowered his smoking rifle. Sorry, boss. Can't let you murder a lawman in cold blood, even if he is being an idiot. The other marshals shifted, their weapons no longer trained on the wolves, but on Cutter himself. What is this? Cutter's face went red with rage. Mutiny? Common sense. The marshal who'd fired, young, barely 20, kept his rifle steady. We signed up to enforce the law, not commit murder for profit. Deputy Hayes is right. This stops now. Cutter's hand twitched toward his revolver, but Marcus was faster. The wolf crossed the distance in a blur, knocking the weapon away and slamming Cutter to the ground with enough force to crack ribs. Don't move, Marcus growled, his forearm across Cutter's throat. Or I'll give you what you were planning to give us. The tension broke. The marshals lowered their weapons completely, surrendering. Rowan's wolves surged forward, securing the humans without violence but with unmistakable threat. And through it all, Kira stood motionless, her plan unraveling before her eyes. No. The word escaped her lips like a curse. No, this isn't. You were supposed to kill them. All of them. Disappointed? Rowan's voice cut through her spiral. He was moving toward her now, slow and deliberate, a predator who'd finally cornered his prey. Upset that your perfect plan fell apart? Stay back! Or what? You'll kill the healer? Rowan kept walking. Go ahead, try. See what happens. Kira's hand shot out, grabbing for Alara, but Alara was ready this time. She dropped low, sweeping Kira's legs out from under her with a move Rowan had taught her years ago. The wolf went down hard, her head cracking against stone. Before Kira could recover, Rowan was there, his hand fisting in her hair, yanking her head back to expose her throat. You betrayed me, he said quietly. Poisoned me. Killed innocents. Started a war. And for what? Power? Territory? His grip tightened. Was it worth it? Kira laughed, the sound edged with hysteria. You still don't understand. I didn't do this for power. I did it for us, for the clans, because you were destroying everything with your softness, your love for her. My love for her is the only thing that kept me from becoming you. Rowan released her hair, stepping back. Marcus, silver chains, now. Marcus appeared with the manacles, snapping them around Kira's wrists. She screamed as the metal seared her skin, the smell of burning flesh filling the air. You can't do this, Kira thrashed, but the chains held. I'm your second. I have rights. You have nothing, Rowan's voice was final. You'll stand trial. Both humans and wolves will hear your crimes, and then you'll face the consequences. Together. Kira's eyes found Alara, and the hatred there was pure and visceral. This is your fault. All of it. If you'd just died that first night, if you'd never saved him, none of this would have happened. You're right, Alara said quietly. If I'd never saved him, you would have killed him and taken power. The clans would have gone to war with the humans out of sheer aggression, and hundreds, maybe thousands, would be dead by now. She stepped closer, looking down at the wolf who'd tried to destroy everything. So yeah, I saved him. And I'd do it again. Every time. Kira spat at her feet, but the gesture was empty, defeated. Rowan gestured to his wolves. Take her to the holding den, full guard, no one in or out without my direct order. As they dragged Kira away, her screams echoing across the ridge, Alara finally let herself breathe. The immediate threat was over. Kira was captured. The marshals were disarmed. Caleb was alive. But looking around at the assembled wolves and humans, all exhausted and bloodied and traumatized, Alara knew the real work was just beginning. What happens now? Caleb's voice was rough as he pushed himself to his feet, one hand pressed to his ribs where he'd hit the ground. Now. Rowan surveyed the scene with cold assessment. Now we see if this alliance can actually survive, or if everything falls apart anyway. Some alliance, Cutter, still pinned under Marcus's arm, managed a bitter laugh. Built on lies and desperation. Better than built on nothing at all. Rowan's eyes cut to him. You'll stand trial too, for attempted murder of a territorial deputy and conspiracy to harvest protected species. Protected species? Cutter's laugh turned manic. You hear that, boys? The wolves are protected now. Isn't that rich? Shut up. Marcus pressed harder, cutting off Cutter's air. Easy. Rowan's hand settled on Marcus's shoulder. We're not them. We don't kill prisoners. Even ones who tried to kill us? Especially them. That's what separates us from animals. Rowan's gaze swept across his assembled wolves. Kira was wrong about a lot of things, but she was right about one. We've been soft, complacent, too willing to let humans dictate terms of our own survival. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the pack. Alara felt her stomach tighten. But, Rowan continued, his voice hardening, the answer isn't war, isn't violence for its own sake. The answer is strength, real strength, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself with blood. He turned to face Alara fully, and the weight of his stare made her chest ache. The kind that comes from standing beside someone who makes you better, who challenges you, who refuses to let you become a monster even when being a monster would be easier. The words hung in the air like a confession. Alara Quinn. Rowan dropped to one knee in front of her, and every eye on the ridge locked onto them. I'm asking you now, publicly, in front of both our peoples. Be my queen. Stand with me, not as a human trying to appease wolves or a healer trying to save everyone, but as my equal, my partner, the one who will call me on my shit and keep me honest when power starts to corrupt. Alara's breath caught. This was it. The moment she'd been running from for 5 years, the choice she'd tried so hard not to make. And standing there, with Caleb watching and the wolves waiting and the whole fragile piece balanced on her answer, she realized something. She'd already chosen. The moment she'd traded herself for those hostages, the moment she'd stood beside Rowan in front of his court, the moment she'd admitted she loved him, all that was left was saying it out loud. Yes, she whispered. Then louder, strong enough to carry, yes, I'll be your queen. The wolves erupted into howls, some celebratory, some angry, all loud enough to shake the earth. The humans shifted uncomfortably, hands moving to weapons they no longer had. And Caleb, standing apart from both groups, just looked at her with something that might have been sadness or might have been relief. Well then, Rowan stood, his hand finding hers and holding tight. Let's get to work. Bobarch. The trial took place 3 days later in a hastily constructed neutral ground, a clearing exactly halfway between the settlement and wolf territory. Humans on one side, wolves on the other, and a makeshift court in the center where Kira knelt in silver chains. Alara stood beside Rowan on a raised platform, wearing a dress she'd borrowed from one of the Wolf Clan seamstresses, deep forest green with silver embroidery that caught the light. She felt exposed, judged. Every eye in the clearing was on her, measuring her worth. Caleb sat in the front row of the human delegation, his face carefully blank. They'd spoken once since the Ridge, a brief conversation where he'd wished her well and told her he was leaving the territory, heading east to start over somewhere that didn't carry so many ghosts. She'd wanted to stop him, wanted to say something that would fix the broken pieces between them. But there was nothing left to say. They'd burned that bridge together, and all that remained was smoke and ash. The trial itself was brutal. Kira confessed to everything, the poisoning, the attacks, the manipulation, with a defiance that bordered on pride. She showed no remorse, no regret, just cold certainty that she'd been right and the world had been wrong. The verdict was unanimous. Death. Both sides agreed. There was no redemption for what she'd done. Rowan stood to pronounce sentence, his voice carrying across the clearing. Kira of the Northern clans, you are found guilty of treason, murder, and conspiracy to incite war. By the laws of our people and the treaty between our nations, you are sentenced to execution. Do you have any last words? Kira lifted her head, her amber eyes finding Alara in the crowd. I hope it was worth it, little healer. I hope loving him is worth watching your world burn. Because it will burn. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually the humans will come for all of you. And when they do, you'll remember that I tried to stop it, that I tried to make us strong enough to survive. We are strong enough, Rowan said quietly, because we're not alone anymore. You're delusional, Kira smiled, sharp and sad. But I suppose that's love for you, makes you blind to everything else. Then she closed her eyes and bared her throat, accepting her fate with the same fierce pride she'd lived with. The execution was quick, clean. Marcus did it himself, one sharp twist that ended Kira's life before she could make a sound. Alara watched without flinching. She owed Kira that much. To witness the consequence of her choices. To carry the weight of this death alongside all the others. When it was over, when Kira's body had been taken for burial rites and the crowds had begun to disperse, Alara found herself alone with Rowan on the platform. Are you all right? He asked quietly. No. She looked at her hands, half expecting to see blood even though she hadn't touched Kira. But I will be. That's all any of us can ask for. Rowan pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her in a grip that felt like safety and possession all at once. Thank you. For standing with me. For choosing this. Don't thank me yet. Alara leaned into his warmth, letting herself have this moment before reality came crashing back. The hard part's just starting. Building a real alliance, proving to both sides that this can work. We'll manage. Will we? She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Half your wolves still think you've gone soft. Half the humans think I'm a traitor. Caleb's leaving. The town's in ruins. And we're supposed to build peace out of this? Yes. Rowan's hand cupped her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. Because the alternative is watching everything Kira predicted come true. And I won't give her that satisfaction, even in death. Alara wanted to believe him. Wanted to think that love and determination would be enough to bridge the impossible divide between their worlds. But standing in that clearing, with Kira's blood still wet on the ground and the weight of a crown she hadn't earned yet pressing down on her shoulders, all she felt was doubt and fear. And the terrible certainty that the worst was still coming crashed down on Alara 2 weeks after Kira's execution, when Marcus burst into the council chamber with blood streaming from a gash across his temple and terror written across his face. My king! He dropped to one knee, breath ragged. The Eastern clans. They're mobilizing. Rowan's head snapped up from the treaty documents scattered across the table. How many? All of them. Every clan from the mountains to the coast. Marcus's voice shook. Maybe 300 wolves, and they're not coming for negotiation. The room went deathly silent. Alara felt her stomach drop through the floor. 300 wolves. That was more than double Rowan's forces. More than enough to wipe out both his clans and the human settlement in a single coordinated strike. Why? Rowan's voice was dangerously calm. We executed the traitor, proved we could police our own. What reason do they have to attack? They're calling you weak. saying you let a human execute one of our own. We both decided Kira's fate. The councils voted. They don't care about votes. Marcus slammed his fist against the stone floor. They care that you knelt before a human, that you put her on a throne meant for wolves, that you're building a peace they never agreed to. Elara stood abruptly, her chair scraping against stone. When do they arrive? 3 days. Maybe less if they force march. Marcus looked at her, and she saw the apology in his eyes. They're demanding you surrender yourself to them, publicly renounce your claim as queen, or they burn everything. Absolutely not. Rowan was on his feet now, his voice carrying the weight of absolute command. She's under my protection. Anyone who touches her answers to me. My king, you can't fight 300? Then I'll die trying. Simple. Final. No room for argument. Elara's mind raced. 3 days. They had 3 days to prepare for a war they couldn't win. 3 days before everything they'd built came crashing down. What about the humans? She asked quietly. Will they fight with us? Marcus shook his head. The council met yesterday. They voted to remain neutral. Let the wolves sort out their own problems. Of course they did. Elara laughed, bitter and sharp. Why risk human lives for a treaty half of them never wanted? Not all of them voted that way. Marcus stood, swaying slightly. Some wanted to help, but they were outvoted. Who? Rowan's eyes narrowed. Who voted to help? Does it matter? They lost. It matters to me. Marcus hesitated, then said quietly, Hayes. Caleb Hayes stood before the council and said we should honor the alliance, that breaking it now would make us no better than Kira. Elara's chest tightened. Caleb, even after everything, even after she'd chosen Rowan, even after he'd decided to leave the territory, he'd still stood up for them. Where is he now? She asked. Gone. Left the night after the vote. Said he couldn't watch another massacre. Marcus's expression softened. He asked me to tell you. He hopes you survive this. Both of you. The words hit harder than they should have. Elara turned away, blinking back tears she didn't have time for. Caleb was gone. The humans had abandoned them. And in 3 days, an army of wolves would descend on this place and tear it apart. We need allies, Rowan said, his tactical mind already working. The southern clans won't come. They're staying neutral too, waiting to see who wins before they pick a side. Marcus wiped blood from his face. My king, we're alone in this. Then we make our stand here, fortify the territory, set traps, make them bleed for every inch. No. Elara's voice cut through the planning. That's what they're expecting, a desperate defensive stand that they overwhelm through sheer numbers. You have a better idea? Maybe. She turned to face them both, her mind crystallizing around a plan that was either brilliant or suicidal. They're coming for me, right? They want me to surrender, to renounce my claim. Which you won't do. Which I will do. She held up a hand, stopping Rowan's immediate protest. Publicly, in front of their entire army. I'll walk out there and tell them I'm not worthy, that I was wrong to think a human could stand beside a wolf king. Elara. And then, she continued, her voice hardening, while they're celebrating their victory and letting their guard down, we hit them. Hard, from multiple angles. Take out their leaders in the confusion. Rowan stared at her like she'd lost her mind. You want to use yourself as bait. I want to give us a fighting chance. She stepped closer, urgency bleeding into her tone. They're expecting you to protect me, to hide me behind your wolves and make them come through a killing field. So we do the opposite. We give me up freely, make them think they've won without a fight. And what happens when they realize it's a trap? When they decide to kill you anyway out of spite, then you make sure you're close enough to stop them. She met his eyes, willing him to understand. This is the only way, Rowan. We can't win a straight fight, so we don't fight straight. Marcus cleared his throat. It could work. If we position our forces correctly, hit their command structure while they're distracted. It's too dangerous. Everything's dangerous. Elara grabbed Rowan's arm, feeling the tension coiled in his muscles. We're outnumbered 3-1 with no reinforcements coming. Dangerous is all we have left. For a long moment, Rowan said nothing. She could see the war playing out behind his eyes. The alpha who wanted to protect his mate fighting against the king who needed to save his people. Finally, he spoke. If we do this, if I agree to this insanity, you follow my commands exactly. No improvisation, no heroics. The second things go wrong, you run. I'm not running. Then we don't do it. His hand covered hers, gripped tight enough to ache. Those are the terms. You live, or we find another way. Alara wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she wasn't some damsel who needed protecting. But looking at his face, at the barely controlled fear beneath the command, she understood. He'd already lost too much. Already watched too many people die. If she wanted him to risk this plan, she had to give him something in return, a promise she might not be able to keep. All right, she said quietly. If things go wrong, I run. Swear it. I swear. The lie tasted like ash on her tongue. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Rowan's wolves dug concealed positions around the clearing where the eastern clans would make their approach. Traps were set, silver-lace nets, pitfalls disguised with branches, carefully positioned archers in the trees. Alara spent her time memorizing the plan, learning the signals, and trying not to think about the 100 ways this could go catastrophically wrong. On the third day, just after dawn, the eastern clans arrived. They came like a storm, hundreds of wolves moving through the forest in perfect coordination, their ranks tight and disciplined. At their head rode a massive gray wolf who shifted to human form as he entered the clearing. Elder Silas. Alara had heard of him, the oldest living alpha, a wolf who'd ruled the eastern territories for over 50 years. He was ancient by their standards, his human form weathered and scarred, but his eyes were sharp as broken glass. Rowan Vire. His voice carried across the clearing like gravel scraping stone. You stand accused of treason against our kind, of elevating a human above her station, of weakening our bloodlines with your obsession. Rowan stood at the edge of his territory, Alara beside him, Marcus and 30 wolves at their backs. Against 300, they looked pathetic, outmatched, exactly as planned. I stand accused of building peace, Rowan called back, of finding a way for our people to survive without endless war. Survival through submission. Silas's lip curled. You've forgotten what you are, what we all are. Predators, not pets to be domesticated by human hands. I've forgotten nothing. I've simply learned that strength comes in forms you're too old to recognize. The insult rippled through the eastern wolves. Growls rumbled like distant thunder. Silas smiled, showing teeth that were still sharp despite his age. Bold words from a wolf who's outnumbered 10 to 1. Where are your allies, King Rowan? Where are the humans who swore to stand with you? They made their choice, as I've made mine. To die for a human whore? How noble. Silas's eyes cut to Alara, cold and assessing. Is she worth it, I wonder? This creature who's turned you into a mockery of what you were? Alara forced herself to stand tall under that gaze, to not flinch. This was the moment, the pivot point where everything hung in balance. He's not dying for me, she said, her voice carrying clear and strong. Because I'm not worth dying for. Rowan's head snapped toward her. Alara, I was wrong. She took a step forward, away from Rowan's protective stance. Wrong to think I could be queen. Wrong to think a human belonged beside a wolf. Wrong about all of it. What are you doing? Rowan's voice was low, dangerous. What I should have done from the start. She kept moving, putting distance between them. Elder Silas, you came here demanding I surrender myself, renounce my claim. I'm doing that, publicly, right now. The clearing went silent. Every wolf, eastern and northern, stared at her in shock. Alara, stop. Rowan's command cracked like a whip. Get back here now. She ignored him, walking toward the massed eastern wolves with her hands raised, showing she was unarmed. I renounce any claim to leadership over the wolf clans. I acknowledge that I was never worthy, that my presence has brought nothing but division and death. Well, Silas watched her approach with something like satisfaction. Perhaps you're smarter than I gave you credit for. Human, you see the inevitable and choose survival over pride. Something like that. Alara stopped 10 feet from the eastern front line, close enough to see individual faces, close enough to be surrounded if this went wrong. So let's end this. I surrender myself to your judgment. In exchange, you let Rowan and his wolves live in peace. And if I refuse, if I decide to take you and still destroy them, then you prove you were never interested in justice, just slaughter." She met his eyes without fear. "And you'll have to live with that, all of you." She pitched her voice to carry, to reach every wolf in that clearing. "You came here because you're afraid, afraid that change makes you weak, that peace means submission. But look at yourselves. 300 warriors mobilized to terrorize one small clan and a human healer. Is that strength? Or is that exactly the kind of weakness you claim to despise?" Murmurs rippled through the eastern ranks. Not agreement, not yet, but doubt. The first crack in their certainty. Silas's expression darkened. "Careful, human. Your surrender doesn't buy you immunity from consequence." "I'm not asking for immunity. I'm asking for clarity." Alara took another step closer. "You want me gone? Fine. Take me. Execute me. Parade my body as proof that humans don't belong in wolf territory. But be honest about what you're doing. You're not protecting tradition. You're murdering an unarmed woman to make a point that needs making." Silas gestured, and two wolves moved forward to flank Alara, their presence threatening. "You've corrupted Rowan, weakened him, made him forget the old ways." "No, I reminded him of better ways." She didn't resist as the wolves grabbed her arms, their grip bruising. Ways where strength isn't measured in body counts, where survival means more than just not dying. Behind her, she heard Rowan snarl, heard Marcus holding him back. The plan was working. She was the focal point now. Every eye in the clearing was on her, which meant they weren't watching the tree line, weren't noticing the archers taking position, weren't seeing the wolves circling wide through the forest, moving into attack formation. "Enough philosophy." Silas stepped closer, his hand moving to the silver blade at his belt. "You surrendered yourself. Now face the consequences." He raised the blade and Alara's heart slammed against her ribs. This was it. The moment where the plan either worked or she died trying to buy her people a few extra seconds. The blade descended, and a wolf screamed. Not Alara, not anyone in the clearing. From the eastern ranks at the very back, a wolf collapsed with an arrow through its throat. Silver-tipped, lethal, chaos exploded. "Ambush!" someone shouted, and the eastern wolves scattered, searching for the threat. More arrows fell like rain. Not many. Rowan's forces were too small for a sustained barrage, but enough. Enough to create panic. Enough to make 300 wolves turn their attention away from the prize in front of them and toward the hidden attackers in the trees. Silas spun toward Rowan, fury twisting his features. Treachery. Strategy. Rowan was already moving, shifting mid-stride into his massive black wolf form. His howl split the morning air, the signal to attack. The wolves holding Alara's arms hesitated for just a second, torn between their prisoner and the battle erupting around them. She used the opening, driving her elbow into one solar plexus and stomping on the other's instep. Both grips loosened. She ran, not away from the fight. She'd promised Rowan she'd run, but she'd never specified which direction. But toward the concealed weapons cache Marcus had positioned at the clearing's edge. Her hands found the silver knife she'd hidden there, its weight familiar and deadly. Behind her, wolves clashed in a snarling mass of fur and fangs. Rowan's forces were outnumbered, but they were fighting on home ground with desperation on their side. And the eastern clans, thrown off balance by the ambush, couldn't coordinate their superior numbers effectively. Alara watched Rowan tear into two eastern wolves simultaneously, his jaws finding throats with brutal efficiency. Watched Marcus lead a flanking charge that folded the eastern line back on itself. Watched her people, because they were her people now, whether the eastern clans acknowledged it or not, fight like demons. But it wasn't enough. There were too many. For every eastern wolf that fell, two more pressed forward. Rowan's forces were being surrounded, compressed into a tightening circle. In minutes, maybe less, they'd be overwhelmed. They needed something bigger, something that would break the eastern clan's will to fight. They needed their leader dead. Alara's eyes found Silas across the clearing. He was still in human form, directing his forces with hand signals, staying back from the main combat. Protected, safe. Exactly the kind of arrogant mistake she'd been hoping for. She moved through the chaos like smoke, using the fighting wolves as cover. Silver knife in hand, heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her teeth. 30 feet, 20, 10. Silas saw her coming at the last second. His eyes widened, not with fear, but with something like satisfaction. "So the little human has teeth after all," he said, drawing his own blade. "Good. I was hoping you'd fight." He lunged, faster than any human could match. Alara barely dodged. The blade whistled past her ear, close enough to draw blood. She countered with a slash aimed at his exposed side, but he twisted away, impossibly quick for someone who looked ancient. "You can't win this," Silas said, circling her. "You're human. Fragile. Slow. Maybe." Alara adjusted her grip, watching his footwork. "But I'm also the one who's been fighting my whole life. While you've been sitting in whatever cave you call home, I've been surviving. Every single day." She attacked, a feint toward his throat that became a slash at his thigh. The blade bit deep. Silas hissed, stumbling back. "Lucky strike. Skill." She pressed forward, not giving him time to recover. "You've forgotten what it means to fight someone who has nothing to lose." Their blades met with a screech of metal on metal. Silas was stronger, his wolf nature giving him inhuman power even in human form. But Alara was smaller, quicker, and she'd spent 5 years learning to fight opponents who could kill her with a single blow. She ducked under his guard, her knife finding the soft spot beneath his ribs. Not deep enough to kill, but deep enough to hurt. Silas roared, his hand clamping around her throat. He lifted her off the ground, his grip crushing her windpipe. "You think stabbing me makes you strong?" Blood dripped from his wounds, but his eyes burned with feral fury. "I've survived 100 years of war. You're nothing, an insect, and I'm going to crush—" A massive black wolf slammed into Silas from the side, jaws closing around his arm. Rowan. He'd seen Alara in trouble and abandoned his position to save her. The three of them went down in a tangle of limbs and fangs. Alara rolled free, gasping for air, her throat on fire. She watched Rowan and Silas fight, the ancient alpha shifting forms mid-combat, trying to match Rowan's raw power with centuries of experience. They were evenly matched, too evenly. This fight could go on for minutes, hours, while around them Rowan's wolves continued to fall. Alara's hand found her knife where it had fallen. She forced herself to her feet, every breath agony, and staggered toward the fighting pair. Rowan had Silas pinned, his jaws around the older wolf's throat, but Silas had shifted one hand into claws, raking deep furrows across Rowan's exposed belly. Both of them were bleeding. Both of them were failing. "Rowan!" Alara's voice came out ragged. "Move!" He didn't hesitate, didn't question, just rolled aside, trusting her completely. Alara brought the silver knife down with every ounce of strength she had left, driving it through Silas's chest and into his heart. The ancient alpha's eyes went wide. He stared up at her, blood bubbling from his lips, and managed a single word. "Fitting." Then the light went out of his eyes. The silence that followed was deafening. Every wolf in the clearing, eastern and northern, had stopped fighting to stare at the human woman standing over their dead elder with a bloody knife in her hand. Alara pulled the blade free, her hands shaking, and turned to face the 300 wolves who could tear her apart in seconds. "It's over," she said, her voice carrying across the sudden quiet. "Your leader challenged mine. He lost. By your own laws, that ends this." "You killed him." One of the eastern wolves, young, barely more than a pup, took a step forward. "You murdered our elder, I executed him, in defense of my king." Alara raised the bloody knife higher. "Anyone who wants to dispute that, step forward. I'll fight you too." No one moved. She could see the calculation happening in their eyes. Silas was dead. Their entire reason for being here was gone, and the human they'd come to execute was standing in front of them, soaked in their leader's blood, daring them to try again. "Go home," Rowan said, shifting back to human form despite his wounds. "Take your elder's body. Give him the rights he deserves. But this war is finished." "And if we refuse?" The young wolf's voice shook. "If we decide to finish what we started, then you die. Simple. Final." Rowan's eyes swept across the eastern ranks. "All of you, because I don't have mercy left. And neither does she." He stepped up beside Alara, his hand finding hers. His fingers laced through hers, claiming her in front of everyone. "This is my queen," he said quietly. "My chosen. My equal. She just killed a wolf 3 times her age and 10 times her strength. So if anyone here thinks humans are weak, that they don't belong in our world. Step forward. Prove it. The challenge hung in the air. For a long, terrible moment, Alara thought they would take it. Thought all 300 would rush forward in a wave of fur and rage. But then, slowly, the young wolf who'd spoken dropped to one knee. "Forgive us, my king, my queen. We were wrong." One by one, the other eastern wolves followed, kneeling, submitting, acknowledging defeat. Alara stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. They'd won. Against impossible odds, with a plan that should never have worked, they'd actually won. But looking at the bodies scattered across the clearing, wolves from both sides, dead or dying, the victory felt hollow. "Marcus," Rowan called out, "see to the wounded, theirs and ours. We honor the dead together." As the wolves moved to obey, Alara finally let herself breathe. Her legs gave out, and only Rowan's arm around her waist kept her upright. "You promised you'd run," he said quietly, his voice rough with emotion and pain. "I lied." "I know." He pulled her closer, his forehead dropping to rest against hers. "You always do. It's infuriating, but effective." This time, his hand cupped her face, thumb brushing across her split lip. "Next time, you might not be so lucky." "There won't be a next time. This is done. The Eastern clan submitted. The war's over." Rowan's expression darkened. "The Eastern clan submitted, but there are others, Southern, Western, clans we haven't even heard from yet. And when word spreads that a human killed Elder Silas..." He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Alara understood. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. She'd proven herself in combat, earned respect through violence, but that respect was fragile, built on fear as much as admiration, and fear was a terrible foundation for peace. "What do we do?" she asked. "We prepare for whatever comes next." Rowan looked out at the assembled wolves, eastern and northern, wounded and whole, all watching them with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. "We build something strong enough to survive, or we die trying." Inspiring. It's honest. He turned his attention back to her, and the weight of his gaze made her breath catch. "You terrified me today. Watching you walk toward Silas, seeing him grab you. For a second, I thought, I know." She pressed her hand against his chest, feeling his heart hammering. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be careful. Be smart. Be anything except dead." His voice cracked on the last word. "I can survive a lot of things, Alara, but losing you isn't one of them." Before she could respond, a commotion erupted at the clearing's edge. Wolves parted, revealing a figure stumbling through the ranks. A human figure, covered in blood and barely standing. Caleb. Alara's heart stopped. No, you left. You were supposed to be gone." "I got halfway to the eastern border," Caleb rasped, swaying on his feet. "Couldn't do it. Couldn't run while you were here fighting." He coughed, and blood spattered his lips. "So I came back." "You came back to what?" Rowan demanded. "You're one man, unarmed by the look of it. What did you think you'd accomplish?" "A distraction." Caleb's smile was pained. "Those archers in the trees? I led them here. 20 men from the settlement, the ones who voted to help. We figured arrows from a distance might even the odds." "You did this?" Alara moved toward him, her hands already assessing his wounds. 3 deep gashes across his chest, claw marks. "Who hurt you?" "Eastern scouts. Caught me on the way in. I didn't make it clean." His legs buckled. Rowan caught him before he hit the ground, lowering him carefully. "Marcus, healer supplies, now!" "Why?" Caleb's eyes found Alara's, and she saw the resignation there. "Why did you come back?" "Because you were right." His hand found hers, his grip weak. "About all of it. 2 worlds can coexist, should coexist. I was too hurt to see it before." "You're going to be fine." Alara's voice shook as her hands worked, trying to staunch the bleeding. "These wounds are deep, but not fatal. I can fix this." "Alara." Caleb's other hand touched her face, gentle and final. "Stop. We both know." "No." Tears streamed down her face. "No, damn it. You don't get to die. Not after coming back. Not after... No, damn it, you don't get to die. Not after coming back. Not after finally seeing what I've been trying to build here." But Caleb's breathing was already turning shallow, each inhale a wet rattle that Alara knew too well. She'd heard it 100 times before, the sound of lungs filling with blood, of a body shutting down piece by piece. Alara. His voice was barely a whisper. Stop, please. I can save you. I've done it before. Not this time. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, the gesture achingly familiar. And that's okay. I made my choice, came back because it was right, not because I expected to survive it. Rowan knelt beside them, his expression unreadable. The archers you brought, they're still out there? In the trees, waiting for my signal to withdraw. Caleb coughed again, more blood. They're good men. Don't let my mistake get them killed, too. Marcus. Rowan didn't look away from Caleb. Find them. Bring them in safely. They fought with us today. That makes them kin. Marcus hesitated only a second before bounding off into the forest, taking a dozen wolves with him. Alara pressed harder on Caleb's wounds, her hands slick with his blood, knowing it was futile but unable to stop trying. Why did you really come back? The truth. Because I loved you. Past tense again. Caleb's eyes were losing focus. And love means wanting you to be happy, even when it's not with me, even when it tears me apart. Caleb, let me finish. He squeezed her hand weakly. I hated him, hated what he represented, what he took from me. But watching you stand over that dead elder with a knife in your hand, a ghost of a smile crossed his lips. You weren't the woman I fell in love with. You were something more, something I could never have given you. That's not true. It is, and that's okay. His gaze shifted to Rowan. Take care of her. Not because she needs it, but because loving her is the best thing you'll ever do. Don't waste it. Rowan's jaw clenched. I won't. Good. Caleb's eyes returned to Alara, and she saw the peace there, the acceptance. I'm glad it was you, both of you. Better this than dying old and bitter, wondering what could have been. Stop talking like this is goodbye. It is. His breathing hitched, stuttered. Just promise me something. Anything. Build it. The peace. The alliance. Make my death, make it mean something. I promise. The words broke on a sob. I promise, Caleb. I swear. He smiled one last time, his hand going slack in hers. The light in his eyes dimmed, then went out completely. Alara sat frozen, her hand still pressed against wounds that no longer bled. Around her, the clearing had gone silent. Wolves and the newly arrived human archers all watching as she held the body of a man who'd loved her enough to die for a future he'd never see. Rowan's hand settled on her shoulder. Alara. He came back. Her voice sounded distant, strange to her own ears. He was safe. He'd left. And he came back. I know. For me. For us. For this. She gestured at the carnage surrounding them, the bodies of wolves and humans who'd killed each other over fear and pride and the inability to see past their own hatred. For all of this. His choice. His sacrifice. Rowan pulled her to her feet gently. Honor it by finishing what he died for. She wanted to scream, wanted to rage at the unfairness of it all. That Caleb had finally understood, finally chosen to stand with them, only to have it cost him everything. But rage wouldn't bring him back, wouldn't undo the wounds that had stolen his life. All she could do was what she'd promised, build something worthy of his sacrifice. We need to send his body home, she said, her voice steadying. With full honors. Let his people know he died a hero. It will be done. Rowan turned to address the assembled crowd, eastern wolves, northern wolves, and the 20 human archers who'd emerged from the trees, their faces pale with shock at what they'd witnessed. Today, we fought. Today, many of you lost friends, family, people you'll never see again. His voice carried across the clearing, commanding absolute attention. But today we also learned something. Humans and wolves can stand together, can fight for the same cause, can bleed the same blood for a future neither of us will survive alone. He gestured to Caleb's body. This man was human. He had every reason to hate us, to want us dead. We took the woman he loved. We brought war to his doorstep. We gave him nothing but pain. Rowan's hand found Alara's, holding tight. But he came back, fought beside us, died so that others might live in peace. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the wolves. Even the eastern clans who'd come here to destroy them seemed moved. So here's what happens now, Rowan continued. We bury our dead together, humans and wolves side by side. We tend our wounded without discrimination, and then we rebuild. Not two separate nations pretending to coexist. One alliance, one future, or nothing at all. One of the eastern wolves stepped forward, an older female with scars crossing her muzzle. You ask us to abandon everything we know, everything we are. I ask you to survive. Rowan's eyes blazed. The world is changing. Humans are spreading across this territory whether we like it or not. We can either adapt or go extinct. Those are the only options left. And her? The female's gaze cut to Alara. The human who killed Elder Silas? You still claim her as queen? Yes. No hesitation. She earned that title in blood, yours and ours. Anyone who disputes it can challenge her directly. His smile was sharp. Though I wouldn't recommend it. As you saw, she doesn't lose. Alara squeezed his hand, warning him to dial back the arrogance. This was a delicate moment. Push too hard and the eastern clans might decide to finish what they started. Consequences be damned. I don't want worship, she said, stepping forward to address the wolves directly. I don't want fear or grudging respect. I just want to build something where my children, if I ever have them, don't grow up terrified of the forest, where your cubs can hunt without worrying about silver bullets, where we stop measuring strength in body counts and start measuring it in survival. She gestured at the clearing. Look at this. Really look. We lost maybe 50 wolves today. The humans lost 20 more. For what? Pride? Tradition? The desperate need to prove we're right and they're wrong? It's not that simple, the female wolf argued. Centuries of war make it that simple. Alara's voice hardened. Or keep killing each other until there's nothing left but ghosts and regrets. Your choice. But choose now. Because I'm done burying people I love over conflicts that should have ended generations ago. The silence that followed was heavy with decision. Alara could see the wolves weighing her words, calculating the cost of peace versus the cost of continued war. Finally, the eastern female wolf dropped to one knee. We will try. For Silas. For those we lost. We will try this peace. Relief flooded through Alara so intensely her knees nearly buckled. Rowan steadied her, his arm around her waist, his presence an anchor. Then let's begin, he said. They buried the dead as the sun set, digging graves in the neutral ground between territories. Wolves and humans worked side by side. The silence broken only by the sound of shovels biting earth and quiet prayers spoken in two languages. Caleb's grave was dug first, placed in the center where everyone could see. Alara stood over it as they lowered his wrapped body into the ground. Her hands clasped so tight her nails drew blood. He was a good man, Marcus said quietly, appearing at her side. Better than most of us deserved. He was. Alara's voice cracked. And I broke his heart. No, you were honest with him. That's not the same thing. Marcus glanced at her. He made his own choices. Came back on his own terms. Don't dishonor that by taking responsibility for his death. Someone has to take responsibility. Then take responsibility for living. Marcus nodded toward Rowan, who was helping dig graves alongside his wolves despite his wounds. For building what he died for. That's the weight you carry now. Alara watched as the first shovel of earth fell onto Caleb's shroud. Each subsequent handful felt like a piece of her old life being buried with him. The simple healer who'd tried to walk between worlds without choosing sides. The woman who'd thought love could stay divided. The fool who'd believed she could save everyone. That woman was dead. In her place stood someone harder, more certain. Someone who'd killed an elder wolf with her own hands and claimed a throne built on blood and impossible choices. She wasn't sure she liked who she'd become, but she knew that person was necessary. When the last grave was filled and marked with stones, the assembled crowd dispersed slowly. Eastern wolves heading north to bring word of the peace. Northern wolves returning to their territories to tend wounds and mourn losses. The The human archers preparing for the long walk back to the settlement, where they'd have to explain why they'd defied the council and fought alongside monsters. Alara found herself alone in the clearing as night fell, staring at the fresh graves that dotted the ground like accusations. "You're thinking too loud," Rowan's voice came from behind her. "I can hear it from 50 yards away." "I'm thinking about the cost." She didn't turn around. 73 dead. Maybe more if the wounded don't make it. Also, I could claim a title I never wanted. "You think this was about the title?" Rowan moved to stand beside her, his shoulder brushing hers. "This was about survival, about proving that change is possible. The title is just a symbol. A symbol people died for. People die for symbols every day. At least this one means something." He was quiet for a moment, then added, "Caleb understood that. In the end." "Did he? Or did he just love me too much to watch me fail? Does it matter?" Rowan turned to face her fully. He made his choice, died with purpose. That's more than most people get. Alara finally looked at him, really looked. His face was drawn with exhaustion and pain, his wounds bandaged but still bleeding through. He'd fought for hours, killed dozens, nearly died protecting her. And he was still standing here trying to comfort her about the man who'd wanted her first. "You're a better man than you pretend to be," she said quietly. "Don't spread that around. I have a reputation to maintain." His attempt at humor fell flat. "Alara, I need to ask you something." "What?" "Do you regret it? Choosing me? Building this?" He gestured at the graves. "Because if you do, if any part of you wishes you'd walked away when you had the chance..." "No." She cut him off, the word absolute. "I don't regret choosing you. I regret that people died. I regret Caleb. I regret not being smart enough or strong enough to find a way that costs less. But choosing you?" She stepped closer, her hand finding his chest, feeling his heart beat against her palm. "That's the one thing I'm certain about." Rowan's eyes closed, relief washing over his features. "I needed to hear that." "Why?" "Because I'm about to ask you to do something that might make you hate me." He opened his eyes, and the vulnerability there took her breath away. "The Eastern clans submitted. They'll honor the peace. But word is going to spread about what happened here. About a human queen who killed an elder. About wolves bowing to a woman who should have died the moment she stepped into our territory. And there will be challenges. Other alphas who think they can take what I have. Other clans who see weakness in our alliance." His hand covered hers. "I need you to be ready for that. To stand beside me and show them that we're not weak. That this peace is built on strength they can't match. You want me to fight again. I want you to lead. To be the queen you claim to be. Not just in title, but in action." He paused. "That means making hard decisions. Brutal ones. It means becoming someone the clans fear as much as they respect." Alara understood what he wasn't saying. He was asking her to become like him, ruthless when necessary, willing to kill to protect what they'd built, to abandon whatever remained of her humanity in service of their shared vision. The old Alara would have refused, would have said there had to be another way, a gentler path. But the old Alara was buried in that clearing with Caleb and the 72 others who died today. "I'll do what needs to be done," she said, "but on one condition." "Name it." "You don't let me become a monster. You remind me why we're doing this. You keep me human even when being human feels impossible." She met his eyes. "Can you do that?" "I can try." Rowan pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her like a shield against the world. "We'll keep each other honest, keep each other sane, or we'll go insane together. Romantic. Realistic." He pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you, Alara Quinn. I have since the moment you saved my life 5 years ago and told me I was an idiot for getting poisoned in the first place. And I'll keep loving you through whatever hell comes next." Tears burned in Alara's eyes. "I love you too, even though you're arrogant and impossible, and you make me want to stab you at least twice a day." "Only twice? I'm slipping." His smile was soft, genuine. "Marry me, properly, in front of both our peoples. Make this official. We're already officially mated by wolf law. I want more than that. I want vows, witnesses, a ceremony that says to every human and wolf in this territory that we're building something permanent." His hands framed her face. I want to bind myself to you in every way that matters, so say yes. Elara wanted to point out that they had bigger problems, that a wedding seemed frivolous when they were barely holding peace together with spit and determination, that there were wounded to tend and alliances to forge and 100 crises waiting to explode. But looking at Rowan's face, at the desperate hope beneath his command, she understood. This wasn't about celebration. It was about commitment, about proving to themselves and everyone watching that they believed in this impossible future enough to bet everything on it. Yes, she whispered. I'll marry you. His kiss was fierce and claiming and tasted like blood and smoke and promises she wasn't sure either of them could keep. But she kissed him back with equal intensity, pouring 5 years of longing and fear and desperate love into the gesture. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Rowan rested his forehead against hers. We're going to survive this. Are we? We have to, because I refuse to live in a world where you're not in it. Simple. Absolute. The kind of certainty that left no room for doubt. Elara wished she could match it, wished she could look at the future without seeing all the ways it could still fall apart. But she'd learned to live with uncertainty, to build on foundations that shifted beneath her feet. That was the price of loving two worlds, of trying to bridge the unbridgeable. Come on, she said, pulling away reluctantly. We have work to do. They walked back toward the Northern Territory together, hands clasped, shoulders brushing. Behind them, the graves stood silent in the moonlight, a reminder of what they'd paid and what they still might lose. But ahead, fires burned in the wolf encampments. Human voices mingled with wolf howls in a cacophony that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. And somewhere in that chaos, Elara could feel the fragile shape of the future they were building. It wouldn't be easy, probably wouldn't even be pretty, but it would be theirs. The wedding took place 3 weeks later in the same clearing where the battle had been fought. The graves had been turned into a memorial garden, each stone carved with names and small offerings left by those who'd survived. Elara stood in the center wearing a dress that was half human tradition, half wolf regalia. White silk embroidered with silver thread that caught the light like starlight. Her hair hung loose, wild and free, with small bones and feathers woven through it as symbols of her new status. Rowan faced her wearing ceremonial armor that was more symbolic than functional, etched with the marks of his lineage. His hair was pulled back, exposing the strong lines of his face and the scars that mapped his history. Between them stood Marcus and one of the human archers who'd fought in the battle, a young man named Thomas who'd lost his brother but stayed anyway to help build the peace. We gather here, Marcus began, his voice carrying across the assembled crowd of wolves and humans, to witness the binding of two souls, two leaders, two worlds. Thomas picked up the thread. Marriage is more than love. It's partnership. It's choosing every day to stand beside someone even when the world tries to tear you apart. They spoke in alternating lines, human and wolf traditions woven together into something new, something that had never existed before. Elara barely heard the words. She was too focused on Rowan's eyes, on the absolute certainty she saw there. He'd meant what he said. He would bind himself to her in every way that mattered, would choose her again and again, even when it cost him everything. She wanted to be worthy of that faith, wanted to believe she could be the queen he needed, and the bridge her people needed, and the woman she'd promised Caleb she'd become. But standing there in front of hundreds of witnesses, feeling the weight of their expectations crushing down on her shoulders, all she felt was terrified. Rowan must have seen it in her face because his hand found hers, squeezing gently. His thumb traced circles on her palm, the same gesture he'd used 5 years ago when she'd been terrified of him, of this world, of everything she was walking into. It grounded her, reminded her that fear was allowed, expected even. The trick was doing the thing anyway. Elara Quinn. Marcus's voice pulled her back to the present. Do you take this wolf as your mate? Your partner? Your king? I do. The words came out steady, strong. Rowan Vire, do you take this human as your mate, your partner, your queen? I do. No hesitation, no doubt. Thomas produced 2 silver cords, handing one to each of them. Bind your hands together. Let the knot represent your commitment to each other and to the peace you build together. They wound the cords around their clasped hands, the silver burning slightly where it touched Rowan's skin, but he didn't flinch. When the knot was tied, Marcus and Thomas spoke in unison. By the laws of wolves and humans, we recognize this union. May you lead with wisdom. May you love with courage. May you survive what comes next. The crowd erupted, wolves howling, humans cheering, the sound a chaotic blend that somehow worked. Rowan pulled Alara close, kissing her with a possessiveness that left no doubt about his feelings. When they broke apart, he whispered against her lips, "No going back now." Was there ever? Probably not. His smile was sharp and wild and utterly his. But now it's official. You're stuck with me. Good. She kissed him again, quick and fierce. Because I'm going to make your life hell. Looking forward to it. The celebration that followed lasted 3 days. Wolves and humans mingled cautiously at first, then with growing ease as alcohol and food broke down barriers. There were still tensions, old hatreds didn't disappear overnight, but there was also laughter, music, dancing, small moments of connection that suggested maybe, just maybe, this could actually work. On the third night, Alara found herself alone on the ridge where Kira had taken hostages, where this whole impossible chain of events had started. "You did it!" The voice came from the shadows, making her jump, but it was just one of the eastern wolves, the scarred female who'd been first to submit. Built your alliance, married your king, proved the impossible. We'll see. Alara studied the woman. You came a long way for a wedding you probably didn't want to attend. I came because I needed to see if it was real, if a human and a wolf could actually lead together. The female stepped into the moonlight. My name is Vera, and I lost my daughter in the battle. Alara's chest tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be. She chose to fight, made her own decision. Vera's eyes glinted in the darkness. But I needed to understand why she thought this was worth dying for. And do you? Understand? I'm starting to. Vera gestured at the encampment below, where wolves and humans still celebrated together. My daughter believed in a future where her cubs wouldn't grow up afraid, where they could run free without worrying about hunters or hatred or the weight of centuries-old feuds. She died for that dream. It's a good dream. It's naive as hell. Vera's smile was sharp. But maybe that's what we need. Someone naive enough to try the impossible. Someone too stubborn to accept failure. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. Vera turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, Queen Alara, I hope you survive long enough to see this dream realized. My daughter would have liked that. She disappeared into the night, leaving Alara alone with her thoughts and the distant sound of celebration. Footsteps approached. Heavier, familiar. Rowan appeared beside her, 2 cups of wine in his hands. He offered her one, and they stood in comfortable silence, looking out over the territory they now ruled together. What are you thinking? He asked finally. That we're going to fail. The words came out before she could stop them. That this is too fragile. That one wrong move will shatter everything. Probably. Rowan took a long drink. But we'll fail together. That's got to count for something. Does it? It does to me. He set his cup down, pulling her into his arms. Alara, I'm not going to promise you success. I'm not going to tell you this will be easy, or that we'll win every battle, or that love conquers all. Comforting. But, he continued, ignoring her sarcasm, I will promise you this. Every day, I will choose you. Choose us. Choose this impossible dream we're building. And when I fail, because I will fail, I'll get back up and choose it again. That's the only guarantee I can give. Alara turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd somehow become her everything. That's enough. Is it? It has to be. She kissed him softly, a promise of her own, because that's all any of us really have. The choice to keep trying, to keep building, to keep believing even when the world gives us every reason to quit. They stood together on that ridge as the celebration continued below, 2 leaders bound together by something stronger than law or tradition or even love. They were bound by choice, by the daily decision to stand beside each other and face whatever came next. And if that wasn't enough to save them, then nothing would be. Tingi. 6 months later, Alara stood in the same clearing where they'd married, watching as the memorial garden bloomed with early spring flowers. The graves were well tended, visited regularly by both wolves and humans who wanted to remember the cost of peace. She came here often, especially to Caleb's grave, needed to tell him about the progress they'd made, the trade routes established between human settlements and wolf territories, the shared schools where human children and wolf cubs learned together, the healing centers where both species received care without discrimination. It wasn't perfect. There were still incidents, still hatred simmering beneath the surface, still wolves who thought Rowan had gone too soft, and humans who thought Alara was a traitor. But there was also hope, real, tangible hope that maybe their children would grow up in a world where species didn't define destiny. "I'm pregnant," she said quietly to Caleb Stone. "Found out yesterday. Rowan doesn't know yet. I'm terrified. Half human, half wolf children. No one knows if that's even possible, if they'll survive, what they'll be." The stone, of course, didn't answer. "You would have made a great father," she continued, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. "Would have taught your kids to be good, kind, better than the world deserves. And I'm sorry you won't get that chance. Sorry for a lot of things." "Talking to ghosts again?" Rowan's voice came from behind her, gentle and knowing. "He deserves to know what his sacrifice built." "Does he?" Rowan moved to stand beside her, looking down at the grave. "Or are you trying to forgive yourself for surviving when he didn't?" The question hit too close to home. Alara didn't answer. Rowan sighed, pulling her close. "He wouldn't want your guilt. Wouldn't want you carrying his death like a weight. He made his choice freely. Honor it by living fully." "I'm trying." "I know. That's all any of us can do." Rowan was quiet for a moment, then added, "There's something you need to tell me. I can feel it." Alara took a deep breath, turning to face him fully. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between them. Rowan's eyes went wide, his hand moving instinctively to her stomach. "Are you sure?" "As sure as I can be. The healer confirmed it yesterday." She covered his hand with hers. "Rowan, we don't know if this will work, if the baby will survive, if I'll survive carrying it, half human, half wolf. We'll be perfect." His voice was fierce, certain, because they're ours, because they're the living proof that two worlds can create something new. Or they'll be the final failure that proves this was always impossible. Then we fail gloriously. Rowan pulled her into a kiss that tasted like promise and desperation and hope. Together, like everything else. Alara wanted to believe him, wanted to think that love and determination would be enough to shepherd this fragile new life into existence. But standing there in the memorial garden, surrounded by graves of those who died for this dream, she knew better. Hope was necessary, but it wasn't sufficient. They'd need luck. They'd need strength. They'd need the kind of stubborn refusal to accept defeat that had gotten them this far. And maybe, just maybe, they'd need the blessing of a man who died so they could build something worth living for. "Caleb," she whispered, one last message to the stone. "If you're listening, wherever you are, we're going to try. Going to build the world you died for. And if we fail, at least we'll fail trying. That's worth something, right?" The wind rustled through the memorial garden, carrying the scent of new flowers and old earth. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, answered moments later by a human voice raised in song. Two worlds, one future, impossible odds. But Alara had never been good at accepting the impossible. And neither had Rowan. And neither had Caleb in the end. So they'd keep building, keep fighting, keep choosing each other and this dream and the terrifying hope that maybe, just maybe, love and courage and stubborn determination could reshape the world. It wouldn't be easy, probably wouldn't even be clean, but it would be theirs. And that, Alara decided as Rowan's hand stayed pressed to her stomach and the sun broke through the clouds to illuminate the memorial garden, was enough. It had to be. Because the alternative was surrendering to the darkness, accepting that division and hatred and fear would always win. And Alara Quinn, healer, queen, bridge between worlds, refused to accept that. She'd spent too long building bridges to watch them burn now. So she'd keep building, keep fighting, keep loving Rowan with a ferocity that terrified them both. Keep honoring Caleb's memory by making his sacrifice mean something. And when their child was born, if their child was born, she'd teach them that strength came in many forms, that love could bridge impossible divides, That choosing compassion over cruelty was the bravest thing anyone could do. It was a heavy legacy to carry. But looking at Rowan's face, at the absolute conviction in his eyes, Alara knew she wouldn't carry it alone. They'd shoulder this burden together, two leaders, two lovers, two people who'd chosen each other when the world said they shouldn't. And if that wasn't powerful enough to change the world, then nothing was. The memorial garden bloomed around them as they stood together, hands clasped, futures uncertain but hearts aligned. Two worlds, one love. An impossible dream made real through blood and sacrifice and the stubborn refusal to accept defeat. It wasn't the ending Alara had imagined when she'd first stumbled into wolf territory 5 years ago, wounded and terrified and desperate to save a dying king. But it was the ending they'd earned, together, and that made all the difference.